Black, are we rolling? Awesome. All right, well, this is the Tuesday, January, that's the wrong date on it. 27th, 2026, meeting of the Board of Supervisors for Humboldt County. We're going to start with a salute to the flag, led by Supervisor Arroyo. Oh, we're going to do a roll call? Well, we'll do it after that. Let's mix it up a little bit today. All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, now we'll start with the roll call.
Okay, Supervisor Madrone,
Present.
Supervisor Bushnell,
Good morning.
Supervisor Arroyo,
Present.
Supervisor Bone, Chair Wilson,
Here.
all are here.
Great. All right, do we have any modifications to the agenda today?
Good morning, Chair Wilson. There's no modifications today.
Okay, and I just want to note that we have a bunch of time sets at 9:30 due to some scheduling with attorneys and folks. So it's just a little different. I just want to let people know. So we're going to spend a lot of time in the morning in closed session. I'm not sure quite when we'll come back. We'll make an estimate at 9:30 when that's going to happen. And so that being said, we're going to move on to the consent calendar. And let's go to items in the consent calendar. And the first thing that, there's a few things people want to present in that, and one is proclamation recognizing February 2026 as Civil Grand Jury Awareness Month in Humboldt County, and I have a proclamation I'm going to read, and I'm glad you guys are here. So let's just start with that. All right, so this is the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors proclamation in recognition of Civil Grand Jury Awareness Month. Whereas the grand jury is an essential component of California's system of government, providing an independent voice that promotes transparency, accountability, and public trust, in local government. And whereas Humboldt County Civil Grand Jury is composed and dedicated of residents who volunteer their time and expertise to investigate, evaluate, and report on the operations of the county, special districts of government, ensuring that public resources are used effectively and lawfully. And whereas grand jurors serve with integrity, diligence, impartiality, often devoting hundreds of hours to reviewing records, conducting interviews, visiting facilities, and preparing thoughtful findings and recommendations for the benefit of the community. And whereas the work of the civil grand jury strengthens democratic governance by encouraging good public administration, identifying opportunities for improvement, and fostering greater civic engagement and confidence in local institutions. And whereas recognizing Civil Grand Jury Awareness Month provides an opportunity to express appreciation for the vital public service performed by the current and past grand jurors, to encourage community members to consider serving in this important role. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors does hereby proclaim February 2026 as Civil Grand Jury Awareness Month in Humboldt County, and extends its sincere gratitude to all who serve or have served or have barked as members of the Humboldt County Humboldt County Civil Grand Jury for their commitment to justice, accountability, and good government. Thank you very much. And I hope I'm assuming you have something to say.
I have a comment, if it's all right.
Bring it up. This is your moment to shine.
Oh, my moment. All right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, in that case, but anyway, it's a pleasure to be here today, and thank you. Thank you for the proclamation declaring February as Civil Grand Jury Awareness Month. This is a great way to kick off recruitment for the upcoming 26-27 grand jury session. Please contact the Superior Court on the second floor if anyone here is interested in serving. You can pick up an application outside the grand jury office just down the hall, and applications are also available on the county's website. And by the way, there are still a few openings for the current civil grand jury if anyone wants to act now. Joining me today are members of our board and Catherine Sartorius, the current civil grand jury foreperson, is here too, along with other grand jurors. Would they please stand? Oh, they are. Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, and again, thank you for your proclamation and your continued support.
Awesome. Hey, we're going to do a quick photo
Okay.
op. And then I just want to say, everybody who I've ever met who's been on the grand jury has never regretted it. So if anyone's thinking about joining, I'm just saying, track record, great.
I agree.
Okay,
I
I'm going to
agree.
jump down there. We're going to get a quick photo with you guys,
Okay.
and then.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
I don't know how we do this, so you
Well,
got
we
it.
don't either.
Why don't you all stand over there?
I follow her instructions.
Okay, okay.
Supervisor Arroyo
I'll-
knows exactly how this is.
I'll stand by you. And it's nice to see you, by the way.
Anyone who wants to be in the
Anyone. We're open to everybody. All right, here you go.
It's a secret who you are, so you have to self-disclose, so I can't.
Oh, yeah.
All right, who knows? I don't know.
Our names are on the
One,
website.
two, there we go.
There we go. Squeeze in.
One more.
Oh, man, this is a big group.
Stand right in front of you, Joanne.
All right.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, big smile. Public service. Okay. Thank you so much.
All right, thank
There you
you.
go.
Okay.
See you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and if there's any other short comments about this, by all means, jump in. Here we go.
Well, I'll jump in and just say thank you to people that volunteer for the grand jury. It's a tough job and it's a large commitment of time, and really appreciate the insight you bring and the investigating that you do. Thank you.
Anybody else on the board? Supervisor Bone.
I liked it a lot better when you guys met down the hall, because then we got to see every, on the days that you got together, we got to see you lounging, or I don't know, lounging, more like lurking in the halls. No, but anyway, appreciate all your work. You guys bring a lot of stuff to the highlights, and it's beneficial for the work we do. We can't see it all, so it's kind of nice that you guys give us such a detailed report. And Jim's been there forever, so. Ever and no. So his knowledge and institutional knowledge is great too. So thanks, you guys.
Supervisor Madrone.
Just a big thank you to all of you, and I think it's time to maybe give a little clap out for all of you. So.
All right. Supervisor Arroyo.
Right. I echo my colleagues' sentiments, and I know it's a huge amount of time, and you have a wide-ranging role where you get to see and look into a lot of aspects of governance, and now is a more important time than ever for us to have these checks and balances and civic engagement in our institutions. So thank you so much for stepping up and modeling that, and I will continue to try to recruit some more folks to join you. I know that there's a lot of interest in figuring out how to make serving on the grand jury more feasible for more people. And so I also look forward to seeing how we might be able to do that.
All right. I don't know. I read the proclamation. I believe every word of it. So I really want to echo that. Thank you guys so much. And I hope to see you lurking around the halls. That's Supervisor Bones' comment. What I really mean is, I want you guys in the places that you need to be in order to help us really figure out what we can do to be better, to be more efficient, more just, and more effective to help this community move on. So and work better together. So thank you so much for your efforts. And happy Civil Grand Jury Month.
Thank you.
More days.
All right, moving on to the next item. We have a proclamation. This is for January 2026 as Human Trafficking Awareness Month in Humboldt County, and this is brought to us by Supervisor Bushnell.
Okay, is anybody here for Human Trafficking Awareness Month? You guys can come forward, please, if you would like. So January 2026 as National Human Trafficking Awareness Month. Whereas human trafficking is a serious crime and human rights violations that affects individuals of all ages, genders, and backgrounds, and involves the exploitation of people through force, fraud, or cohesion for labor or commercial sex. And whereas human trafficking occurs in communities of all sizes, including rural and coastal areas such as Humboldt County, and is often exuberated by factors including geographic isolation, housing instability, substance use disorders, and economic vulnerability. And whereas January is recognized nationally as Human Trafficking Awareness Month to increase public understanding of human trafficking, promote prevention and early intervention, and support survivors in their path to safety and recovery. And whereas Humboldt County works in coordination with local, state, and federal partners, as well as nonprofit and community-based organizations to prevent human trafficking, identify victims, and provide trauma-informed survivor-centered services and support, including the collaboration efforts of Humboldt County Child Welfare Service, the Northern California Coalition to Safeguard Communities, and the Humboldt County District Attorney's Victim Witness Service, which together provides prevention, education, frontline staff training, victim advocacy, case coordination, and support throughout the justice and recovery processes. And whereas raising awareness and fostering collaboration among public agencies, service providers, and community partners are essential to reducing human trafficking, supporting survivors, and strengthening community safety and resilience. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims January 2026 as Human Trafficking Awareness Month in Humboldt County. It encourages residents, organizations, and agencies to join in forces to increase awareness, support survivors, and work collectively to prevent human trafficking. Signed, Chair Wilson. I'm going to bring this out and get a picture.
No, it's your proclamation. It's your just in case. Yeah, I'm happy to send it your way. Yeah, absolutely. Did you want me to grab one with your phone too? Or
No.
just
Oh, okay. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
I'm going to get in the middle of you guys here.
Yeah, I'll let you go first.
Oh, thank you.
One more.
Are you good?
Go for it. Yeah.
Alright. This is the right orientation of the camera for you.
Perfect.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Wait, if you guys have anything to say, this is the time to do it.
We are here as part of the Northern California Coalition to Safeguard Communities, or the NorCal Coalition. We just want to take this opportunity to shout out our tip line and our website. So we specialize in labor trafficking that could be happening on our illicit cannabis grows and other drug operations. So our website is norcalcoalition.org, and our phone number is 707-441-3031, and everything is anonymous. If you suspect any suspicious activity, we have the power to investigate it and hold these traffickers accountable. So just give us a call, submit a tip online. Community awareness really matters, especially here in these rural areas. So thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to, so human trafficking doesn't just happen on cultivation grows. It happens everywhere. And really, it is in many places. And so to be aware and to use that tip line is so important. We thank you for the work you do, but recognize it in every industry that it could be in. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Supervisor Bone?
Do you have any numbers from last year that people that were caught trafficking in Humboldt County, so people realize, I mean, with the tip line and everything else, the numbers that you responded to?
Our coalition doesn't have those numbers at the moment, but some of those numbers can be found online, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Okay, I'm taking it back to you, Supervisor.
I just want to thank you for being here today and accepting it and bringing awareness to human trafficking. It's so important, and it's such a uncomfortable thing to recognize it, but so important for people to be able to get the help they need to get out of that situation. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We are going to move on to public comment on everything else on the consent calendar. We're going to start on Zoom. Do we have anybody waiting?
Yes. Caller 7718, I will unmute you and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Kent Sawatsky calling from Mexico. I hope you can hear me okay today. I wish to make comment on item 10. You're putting out a contract, I guess, for a project manager, and for $1,666,366. So a lot of sixes in there. Unfortunately, I guess we can't get local people to do that. Anytime we have to go to Sacramento firm, that's a little bit disheartening. Did want to make comment on the aviation. We have a non-federal reimbursable agreement with the Federal Aviation Administration. So it's a non-federal thing, but with the Fed. I found that interesting. Third thing I wish to comment on is the civil grand jury. So it was sponsored by Supervisor Wilson. I've been tracking the letter, and I can't seem to get a sign that we've.
It appears we've.
Yeah. Except the grand jury. So hopefully, what that letter says. So there's nothing to speak on for asking here the grand jury.
Okay, thank you for the international comments.
I still have one more,
All right.
Chair.
Yep, take the next one on Zoom.
Caller 1026, I will unmute you and you will have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm a resident of Redwood, and I'm calling because we've had a tragic loss of redwood, old growth redwoods.
Hold on. So this is not on the consent calendar. So we're only talking about things that are on the consent calendar. We'll have general public comment after that, if that's what this is about. So hold on, and we'll get right back to you. Okay. Okay. Is there anyone in the room that wants to comment on things that are on the consent calendar? Yes. We have Supervisor Arroyo.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a brief moment to appreciate Hun Kyung Yu for her service on the Children and Families Commission with First Five of Humboldt County. And she served on that commission for many years, and as a child education and development expert, and really brought a lot of expertise and calm and thoughtfulness and skill to that commission. So I want to thank her for her service.
All right. And Supervisor Bushnell, do you have anything for? All right. Do we have a motion and a second to move the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Is there any opposition to unanimous consent? Seeing none, we're going to move on to. This is time for comments from the public on non-agenda items. We're going to go to Zoom first.
Yes. Okay. Caller 1556, I will unmute you and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hello?
Hi, we can hear you.
Okay. I was calling to make some comments about the Lower Redway issue, which has been going on really for a long time in one way or another. There seems to have been some negative confusion between county responsibilities and CAL FIRE's authority in this recent exemption cutting in Redway. The Class Q, or whatever the ordinance is that deals with Lower Redway, is a zoning kind of situation, and the whole thing needs to be rethought, and hopefully, I think it's the last remaining tree in the current exemption will be able to be saved next to the Bryceland Road. There's a long history, and I understood yesterday on good account that actually the state of Redwood League in the past has gotten conservation easement on a lot of the properties in Lower Redway just to conserve the redwood trees on their property. There needs to be a real broad, comprehensive look at the situation in Lower Redway. I think it could be argued that the old growth that is in the Lower Redway, a former subdivision of Pacific Lumber for vacation homes, has more value in terms of old growth than perhaps the Whittemore Grove, John DeWitt Reserve across the river directly from where this operation has been conducted. So I would implore the county and the residents and everyone to resolve this going into the future so these things don't arise and damage happens through exemptions without looking at all the alternatives to adequately protect the old growth in that area. This is Richard Ginger calling on behalf of Forest Forever and a number of other interests in the area, in the region. Thank you.
Thank you.
we have
Caller 7718, I will unmute you and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, I did wish to make comment on, the manner in which the agenda is done. It was explained that you have something to do with the attorneys. I suggest when you have closed session, either you have it at the end or the beginning of the meeting rather than having the public. It kind of chills the public to have to wait around for an undetermined or even if you determined amount of time. It would be appreciated if you did give a time certain to be back in for the people who wish to participate in the rest of the meeting. So I thought I'd make comment on that. The other thing is I'm going to be awarding an award every year, and it will be actually 2 awards. One is the Mr. Potato Head Award and the Mrs. Potato Head Award. And these things are a little bit derogatory. It would be such as somebody who would be on the Coastal Commission and would irritate Elon Musk and cause the county to have every single amount of money that's sent here looked at from a Doge viewpoint. That would be what we would be pulling a Mr. Potato Head. There's a few other things that would define that, so that'll be coming forward, and most likely in May when I come back, we'll actually bring some back. They have it down here in Spanish, so I thought that would be an interesting twist to it. That's something that will probably be awarded every single year. Right now, there's Mike Wilson seems to be in the lead, and then we have Alan Donald McCloskey, who all of a sudden jumped into the running with his litigation against another county in our local DA. So it's going to be a little interesting to see who wins those awards each year, and I will look forward to seeing and hopefully presenting that award to whoever wins it in person for 2025 back in May when I'm back up there. So thank you for my opportunity to speak on these particular non-agenda items today.
Thank you. Caller 3053, I will unmute you and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Thomas Mulder here. I just want to confirm you can hear me there in the chamber.
Yes.
Okay, there's some cutting out here and there, so I don't know if it's speakers or me, so thank you for confirming that. Just comment on non-agenda items, a lot of handful of things. First off, perceived perception is a term I hear a lot. The perceived perception I got when I looked at the agenda was, hey, we don't want the public to participate. We got like, I don't know, over a half dozen closed session items for a time set at 9:30, and then some matters that could be of great interest to the community afterwards. So for those that like to talk about perceived perception, maybe look in the mirror a little bit when they're formulating that agenda. Just good food for thought. The other thing, just briefly, because I heard some comments earlier, you know, it's unfortunate that we live in a community, from my perception, where we tend to overreach and try to overregulate, and it's really sad because it drives away our youth. We spend all this time for community and try to build up our youth via education, sports, and stuff like that, and then we don't provide them an industry or an outlet to stay within the community. So then they go and they take all that great resource they learned as a child and dump that into another community rather than supporting entrepreneurship, the young generation to, you know, sustain business here. You could look at, you know, even the cannabis, the way it was regulated. Then there was a large mass exodus of people from Humboldt County up to north a little bit from here, and it was sad. You know, as a grandfather myself, I pray that my children, and my grandchildren can still stay in this community. But when we as government try to overreach and overstretch, it becomes unfortunate. So as you make all your policies, I really hope you think about that. And then about the trees thing, I read that article, and I appreciate the planning director understanding that's outside the scope of the planning department. That rests in the hands of CAL FIRE. Totally legal. They didn't scapegoat anything, but that's another young person. The kid went to school with my daughter, same age, and you guys are trying to make him a criminal and drive him out. It's sad, you know? Promote the youth in our community to do great things because we teach them to do great things rather than drive them out of our community. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Caller 1026, I will unmute you and you will have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm calling from Redway. I want to clarify some of what was mentioned by the previous caller. I don't think that the planning department overlooking a protection for a protected grove and area of Redway, allowing logging in a protected area is not over-regulating or somehow infringing on the rights of young people to find a livelihood in our community. So starting with that, I will also say I really want this board to address the fact that this planning department seems to know a lot, and even some would say overzealously enforce the laws regarding cannabis in southern Humboldt, but somehow doesn't know the laws protecting our old growth redwood. And that grove has been protected for a reason. And that person saying that they have to cut trees that have been there for thousands of years to protect a home they never lived in. They bought it and immediately took down trees that have been living there far longer than anyone that's on this board or any of us that are calling in right now. So I really want the board to take seriously that the planning department is not doing its duty. On your website, it says, this planning department is responsible for protecting public health, safety, and welfare. That includes our old growth redwoods, which are a huge asset if all you care about is economics in our community. That's part of what people come to this area for. And if you don't want to live under redwood trees, don't buy land under redwood trees. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller 0461, I will unmute you and you'll have 3 minutes.
This is Andrew Morris from Bryceland Vineyards in Bryceland, and I'm calling to comment on what's happening with the trees in Lower Redway. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So this is a long story, but the first thing I'd like to say is that the last thing we need right now is to rekindle the battle between the hippies and the rednecks. I came here as a child in 1969, and I remember what it was like. And some of those divisions still exist, and the divisions in our country right now, maybe this is a mirror of that to some extent, I don't know. But we don't need that. What I do feel that we need is a good process to manage how decisions about these old trees are made. And there needs to be some checks and balances and to remove the profit incentive. So if somebody does have to trim trees or remove trees for real safety issues, which are determined by more than one person, maybe a panel of experts, maybe there's an option to be able to challenge a determination before it goes through all the way, before it can't be revoked. But there needs to be a process, and there needs to be an elimination of the profit motive, because somebody shouldn't be able to just buy a house at a cheap price based on the fact that the trees can't be taken and then take the trees. So that's a problem. There are also some issues with how this is being done and anomalies in terms of the process, and I'm sure many of you are aware, but the gentleman involved is a CAL FIRE guy. He got an approval from a CAL FIRE guy using his CAL FIRE email. You know, the thing was signed off on before he actually owned the property. The trees were apparently ringed so that the process couldn't be challenged. I gather that the planned timber or the official timber company wasn't used. The one that's on his paperwork, someone else is used. There's a number of anomalies with this, and it just seems like CAL FIRE, at least some of CAL FIRE, is sort of throwing its weight around and being an unregulatable part of our government. So generally, I'm in favor of keeping trees. I do live in a wood house, so I'm aware of the realities here. And I think we really need to have some checks and balances.
Sorry, you have utilized your full 3 minutes. We are wrapped up on Zoom.
Thank you for everybody on Zoom, and then now we'll go to the room.
Thank you. My name's Joanne McGarry. I took the bus here to be here in person. And I would like to kind of suggest we reconsider the order of people speaking at this podium and online, because sometimes people who aren't here, and maybe they're not even in this country, don't know what's going on in this room. And there's a lot of people who came here to speak in person, so maybe letting us speak first would be nice. I do speak often on non-agenda items about things like fireworks and animal welfare in our county, and the climate action plan. But today I want to just focus on some historical information, peace, love, and understanding stuff. You may or may not be aware there are Buddhist monks walking through the American South on their way to Washington, D.C. They left Fort Worth, Texas in October on a walk for peace, loving kindness, and compassion. Many communities, municipalities, counties, even state of North Carolina are honoring the beauty and simplicity and impactfulness of this walk for peace. And I just want our community, even though we are not going to see the monks in person, to be aware of the beautiful and wonderful action that they are taking. Secondly, I went yesterday because it was Fred Korematsu Remembrance for Civil Liberties and the Constitution, and heard a woman speak who had been born in Tule Lake internment camp back in the 1940s. She's Japanese American, and just a reminder of the horrors that have preceded the present,
and how we can really learn and not repeat history in these types of brutality of creating the other in our country and in our communities. And that, you know, human trafficking, the immigrant and the crackdown on immigration and refugees and other people that's happening now, that's a human trafficking issue in a lot of ways. Understanding, you know, peace and love, I just think we need to love our neighbors and join in our community. What's happening on the courthouse periodically is beautiful. And understanding one another and really working toward our own inner peace and connecting with others in love so that we can have a peaceful, loving, and nonviolent community. And whatever you can do in your leadership to promote that and join in on that would be most appreciated. Thank you.
Yep. All right, so I have a lot of pain. My blood pressure was like 190 over 120 today from pain. I've been passed up. I had a whole thing, speech, I can't even do it. A lot of you know me. I've been working really hard in this community. My name's Patrick Murphy. I had Humboldt Hardware down the road. Shit. Okay, I have a couple conditions. I have lupus, I have superior canal dehiscence syndrome, which is a cracked skull in my ear canal. So I'm looking at you guys right now. I'm seasick. I'm gonna go outside and throw up and pass out later. I have to work today. I am homeless. I've been on the wait list for everything for years in this county. Everything. I keep getting passed up for the stupidest reasons. The intake for the county and housing is ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous. I have personal people tell me that I've been passed up because of personal reasons and because I sound like an asshole on the phone. I'm like this all the time. Now, I can't speak to people because I'm shaking. I am going to be in my trailer and truck. Last night was my first night. I'm gonna be peeing and shitting on the sidewalks. I have to pee over every hour because of my medical. I can't sleep. I have sleep apnea and need surgery. I haven't had sleep in fucking weeks. I get flown to the Bay Area almost every 2 weeks for medical because I can't do it up here. So I can't have a normal job I can't make meetings half the time. I had 40 hours a week of IHSS. That's gone now that I'm homeless. My medication's gone, my rides are gone. I literally was almost given the key from the county. I got approved for vouchers. And I said that I had this disability and I got refused housing. I've walked into 5 county agencies in the last 2 weeks with witnesses and refused accommodations because I can't write or read. I keep getting passed up on stuff. So when I call people, I sound like this. Everyone thinks I'm an asshole. If you know me, I put in probably $300,000 in taxes in this town. I had an art gallery in Old Town. And now I get shit for help. I get $80 a month assistance. That's it for everything, you know. I get some food, I get the food stamps if I can turn in my stuff and competently go through. And ECM spent 20 hours a week trying to get me services. The counties and the state spent over $20,000 keeping me working last month, the month before, the month before. We're at $200,000 spent on my medical to keep me working. And all I want is like $300 a month somehow for rent or a place to stay. I need a couple surgeries and I can't get them. I have sleep apnea so bad, I don't sleep. Now I don't have any kind of machine anywhere, so thank you.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. And I know, reach out, stay in touch. Okay, do we have anyone else out in the room? That means we're done with general public comment, and we are going to go into closed session.
Thank you, Chair Wilson.
Hold on, Supervisor Bone?
Since the request was made a couple times, and since you're the chair, is there a way we could reschedule this? Because there's people that probably, we're going to give these people a time, and we're not going to come within an hour of the time you give them about this afternoon's agenda. Is there a way we can
No.
do like closed session at the beginning?
We're doing closed session now.
Fully understand.
Okay. I hear what you're saying. This isn't the moment when we can really be rescheduling.
I'm
what's
not
on
asking to
our agenda.
reschedule now. I'm just saying in the future, can we acknowledge that we'll look at that?
Yeah, and I acknowledge this is unusual for us to do this scheduling. Thanks. All right, back to staff.
It is the intention of the board to meet in closed session pursuant to California Government Code Sections 54954.5 and 54957 in order to consider the public employee performance evaluations for the positions of the Department of Health and Human Services Director and the Public Works Director. It is also the intention of the board to meet in closed session pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6 in order to review the county's position and instruct its designated labor negotiators. Finally, it is the intention of the board to meet in closed session pursuant to California Government Code Section 54956.9D1 in order to discuss existing litigation in the cases of Delman Smith et al. Versus City of Eureka et al., Humboldt County Superior Court Case Number CV 2502760, Alan Donald McCloskey versus Stacy Eads, Shasta County Superior Court Case Number 26CV-0209571, Faustino Cayetano versus County of Santa Barbara et al., Case number 2:25-CV-01723-CV-E, and Jackie Clem versus County of Humboldt et al., Humboldt County Superior Court Case number CV 2502812.
Great. So before we take public comment on this, I'm just wondering, is there a procedural way to bifurcate the closed session, that even though it's been time set in this way?
No, since it's been time set at this point, there's no way to change it on this agenda. We can look at different processes for future meetings.
Okay. All right. So with some apologies and with the unusual scheduling, we're looking at how many items on our closed session right now?
There are 7 items on closed session.
All right. Do we think it's possible that we will be back by 1 p.m.?
I would say that the time estimate would be 3.5 to 4 hours. So yes, it's going to be between 1 and 1:30 most likely.
Okay. So I have a couple people out in the audience right now who are here for some items. I'm letting them know that we're likely to be back between 1 and 1:30. Okay, great. And I assume there's some folks online too, but they're not here, so that's the way it is. So now we'll take public comment on those items that are for closed session, and then we'll basically go into closed session. We will think about this in the future and be advised. We're always trying to adapt our schedule to be the best that we can in terms of public access, but sometimes things are out of our control a little bit. So with that, let's take public comment.
Thank you, Chair. Caller 7718, I will unmute you and you'll have 3 minutes.
Ken Swarovski, calling from Mexico, but quite informed of what's happening in the chamber. I do strongly support the suggestion on all these things that was made, that you go ahead and have the people in the room speak first. I have no problem with that. That gives us more time to raise our hand, which sometimes is an issue. I do wish to make comment on, you have one item here. It's item 5. It's Alan Donald McCloskey versus Stacy, Shasta County Superior Court. And Alan has quite the reputation around. I think one of the things I grew in here He had a major outbreak with the Democratic convention here, in which he was throwing the C word and the B word around and made many sexist outbursts, according to what this is. Again, a very interesting person. I don't know why he would have standing. I haven't heard that the Yurok tribe wishes our attorney, our district attorney, to do something different than she is. They're a sovereign nation. I don't know why Mr. McCloskey seems to be representing them. If I were them, I would disassociate myself because of his reputation, which is deplorable, including all kinds of different criminal activities, embezzlement, and things like that, and fraud. So anyway, interesting one there. You have other cases to deal with there. I did wish to make a comment. There's a lot of them. But basically, the complaint, I definitely think you're getting your money's worth out of your Director of Public Works, Tom Matson. On the opposite end of the spectrum, one of the highest paid people in the county is your employee position of Director of Human Health and Human Services. That department has major problems, and you can tell it has major problems because when you assess somebody, look at the survey, the satisfaction you did a while ago, and have some comments regarding your employees, and most of the negative ones were coming from DHHS. Your other departments, from what I saw, nothing came anywhere near close to this satisfaction. That tells you there's something wrong with your management from the top down. I highly recommend you look at that. You may consider sometime making a change. We're not getting our money's worth there, and that department's way too big, probably for anybody to handle, but especially for Connie Beck, COCO Forces. Thank you, Mark. To speak.
Thank you. Caller 3053, I will unmute you and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Thomas Mulder again. I just want to confirm you can hear me there in the chambers.
Yes.
Thank you. I'll just say again, perceived perception. Perceived perception. It's very, very unfortunate. I have taken many Brown Act classes, and I could be wrong, but I do believe you could go into this time set closed session and actually make a motion to continue all the items. So after all your open session agenda items, you could literally go into closed session, make a motion, be back out in 2 to 5 minutes. Just throwing that idea out there for those of you that care about perceived perception. Other thing I want to remind you, I haven't been in the chambers recently, but I do leave, when you do leave for closed session and you leave the chambers, you need a post notice for 24 hours where you're meeting at, and leave that up for 24 hours. Just want to make sure you follow the Brown Act. I remember there was, I don't know what the proper term would, but you were in closed session trying to, maybe roll a supervisor through the coals, and kind of took a long time. So just make sure that perceived perception is correct and you're following the Brown Act. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
That's all on Zoom, Chair.
All right, thank you. Staff have any comment on that?
A motion could be made during closed session to continue and then come back. However, at the time that you raised your initial question, there was nothing to do at that point. We could go into closed session and make a motion to continue certain portions of closed session and then come back later in the day if possible.
All right. How do we can't really even discuss it here though, right? We would have to
We would have to talk about that in closed session.
Okay, we'd have to talk about it in closed session. I feel like we're kind of down this track right now. I'm not really, we have a time set schedule. I don't know how long the other items are going to be. So I'm going to say I think we should just try to be here at 1 to 1:30. That's my suggestion. If we go into closed session and someone wants to make a motion to do that, they can do that. That's fine, and we'll see how that works out. If people want to wait around to see if we pull out of here, that's great. One way or another, we'll get to all the items today, so that's it'll happen.
Well, and one way to do it too is we could always say we'll be back by a time certain later than 1:30.
Right.
if you would like. That would probably be the most definite and transparent way of letting the public know when we would be back. So if we
Okay.
overestimate the time that it'll take for closed session and say we'll be back by that time,
Right.
then that would be the most transparent.
And we're eating into the time when we really are supposed to be with our time sets right now by having these discussions and coming back and forth. So I would say, in the interests of the public, let's say we'll be back at 2 p.m. And it's a time set. Do we need to vote on that, or can I just basically say that's what we're
No,
gonna
it's
do?
not. It's not actually a time set. We're saying that we'll be back
Okay.
at 2. There's no vote required.
Okay, we'll be back at 2. We'll get through the 3 items that we have. I think it's 3 items on the calendar after that, 3 or 4. Let me see.
Through
Four
the chair.
items. Yes.
You announced already in this room that we were going to do closed session and complete it. Half the room left. So now how are you going to re-inform them that it's different?
Well, I don't know what is meant by half the room, but the 2 folks that are kind of leading the charge on both the items that are here are still here in the room. So I'm not clear what that, they're still here. I'm speaking in open session. All right, let's just do 1:30. Let's just keep it at that. We'll bust through the items in closed session. We'll be back at 1:30. I apologize for the inconvenience. All right, moving forward. Mr. Black, are you ready to roll? Kaylee, you ready to roll? Charge. All right, we're back from closed session. We have a report out. I will say we did not finish what we were tasked to do in closed session, and we're going to go back into closed session after these items. So do you want to report out of what we've done so far?
Yes, Chair Wilson. I will report out on items G2 through G7. There was no reportable action taken with regard to items G2 and G3. And with regard to items G4 through G7, the board voted unanimously to authorize the Humboldt County Counsel's Office to defend the County of Humboldt in the cases of Delman Smith et al. Versus City of Eureka et al., Humboldt County Superior Court Case Number CV 2502760, Alan Donald McCloskey versus Stacy Eads, Shasta County Superior Court Case Number 26 CV-0209-571, Faustino Cayetano versus County of Santa Barbara et al., case number 2:25-CV-01723-CV-E, and Jackie Clem versus County of Humboldt et al., Humboldt County Superior Court Case Number CV 2502812.
Thank you. Okay, the first item in coming back, I believe, is an item from the clerk of the board to consider making an at-large appointment to the Humboldt County Planning Commission.
Good afternoon, Board. At the December 16th meeting, the Board was notified that we had a scheduled at-large vacancy on the Planning Commission. It was an at-large for the expiration of Lorna McFarland. So we posted the vacancy and collected applications, as well as had the CAO's office send out a public information request for any other applicants for this position. We did not receive any applicants but from the commissioner who was terming out, Lorna McFarland. So this appointment would be for a 4-year term with an expiration on January 31st, 2030.
Great, thank you. Do we have any comments from the board while we move forward on this? Sure, we can do public comment. Do we have anything on Zoom?
No.
All right. Anything in the room? Lorna, do you want to approach the board and give us some thoughts?
Hi, I did want to mention, I noticed that my application online was turned into a PDF and the scroll function was disabled, so you weren't able to read the full statement that I had submitted. So future, I'll attach it as a Word document, but I can read the statement or I can give kind of the synopsis, whichever you prefer. Yes.
A lot going on today, so
Synopsis is just that I've had some service already. I feel like I've learned a lot and I can apply that for future service. I also feel that I'm kind of a voice of moderation, and on multiple occasions I have come up with a solution that has made an agreement between multiple disagreeing commissioners. So I felt like being the tie vote and coming up with those solutions has been really beneficial. I also feel like outside of Planning Commission, I do work in public service, and there's a lot of overlap, so I feel like I'm a little more up to date and included in some of the projects going on.
great, thank you. I'm going to take the liberty of saying, just going first and saying I'm just very, very happy about the work that you've been doing for the commission. And Supervisor Bone has a comment.
Well, why don't you, I recommend following a recommendation and have Lorna just serve the next 4 years.
Excuse me, Chair. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Yes.
it is actually for a 2-year term because the at-large have been changed to 2 years. So Director Ford just
Okay, give her
reminded me
2
of
then.
that. So the expiration would be in 2028. I
8.
just wanted to do that before you make a motion.
Okay, let me rethink the motion then. I'm not sure if I want her for 2 years. No, that's, I'm making up because staff's recommendation to appoint her.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have comment online? Oh, we already asked that. And there's no comment in the room besides you? Okay, great. Any more comments from Commissioner or from Supervisors?
Just thank you for being willing to serve. It takes a lot of time, and those agendas are long, and the nights are longer sometimes. So thank you for being willing.
Thank you. I agree. It's a complex commission, and there's a complex subject matter, and you're well suited to the subjects at hand, and appreciate your continued service.
Thank you.
Supervisor.
Yeah, I too want to thank you for your service. It's not an easy job. You don't get paid for it, and yet there is a huge amount of homework, as you know, that goes along with being a planning commissioner. And the few meetings that I've been to, you're really well versed. You seem to have done your homework. And I do appreciate the way you try to seek that middle ground. It's so important in this day and age of conflict and diversity. And I do agree that your background with Caltrans and other things really is an asset, I think, to us and to the board. So thank you for your service on the commission.
Thank you.
Not many people want to step up and do these things anymore. So thank you for that.
Of course, thank you.
And I want to thank you for coming down here today and showing that commitment. Yeah, I mean, I've been hearing from so many folks that we have a really good commission these days. You know, sometimes the commission operates in different formats, I would say, and it just seems to be they're just the level of conversation and the amount of work that's been going into some really good decision making is reflective of how little we get appeals. So I really appreciate that. And with that, if we have any objection to unanimous consent, seeing none, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Next. Oh, okay. Well, let me announce what it is, and then you do your job there. So next on the docket is the introduction of an ordinance repealing Measure S, which is the cannabis excise tax. And Supervisor Bushnell?
Thank you. So keeping in motion, I guess, with what I did last time, I'm going to recuse from this item. However, I do want to say that I did get an updated letter from the FPPC, and although I can sit out of abundance of caution, I am going to recuse on the item.
Great. And yep, you will be informed. All right, we're gonna move to staff here. Sean Quincy.
All right. Good
Your job.
afternoon, Chair, members of the board. Sean Quincy, Deputy CAO in the County Administrative Office. On October 28th, your board chose to repeal the Measure S tax that was approved by voters in November of 2016. And the documentation before you today is effectuating that. That is modifying the ordinance. That is removing all the provisions of the ordinance and replacing the title with just a statement that says that the tax is repealed until it is reenacted by the board, which is a provision that was included in the original ordinance that was approved by voters in 2016. So we are introducing this item today, asking you to set it for adoption on February 10th.
Okay. Do we have any discussion from the board or questions before we move to public comment? Supervisor Madrone.
So it may be a fine point of law or whatever, but I had always understood that only the citizens could actually repeal this because it was a citizens-based initiative. And we've been using this word repeal, and at our last meeting where we set the amount of tax at 0, it wasn't actually a repeal, it was just simply setting it to 0, which a future board could choose to raise it back up to the limits it was originally set at, $1, $2, and $3, whatever, with CPI, I guess. But so are we actually repealing this, or are we just sort of setting it at 0 for until somebody changes it again? Well, just to clarify.
So the ordinance itself uses the word repeal. And it says you can repeal any or all of the chapter, assuming that when you reenact it, if you reenact it, it doesn't exceed the tax. And so just going with the language it uses itself, and it was actually the language in the board's motion last time in October. We just left that placeholder in there so that future county staff, supervisors, public will know that it's a thing, right? If we just took the whole thing out, that would have been fine too, authorized, but we wanted to leave a little bit of a trail so that other people know it can come back later. And so we put it in there and explained basically enough so people could go look for it. But it is essentially a repeal of the chapter in the county code to authorize the tax. Rather than leaving provisions that talk about when it's collected or how it's enforced but have no tax, it seemed more consistent with the board's direction to just take it out completely and have less confusion.
Oh, thanks for that clarification. So basically, it leaves it in place to where it could be reenacted by a future board. It wouldn't take the citizens to go back to the ballot to actually bring it back. It would just, so it's a really minor point of difference that doesn't actually exist, whether we're just saying we set it to 0 or we're repealing it. The same thing is true that it can be changed by a future board.
Maybe a helpful way to think about it is that Measure S is not repealed because the voters enacted that, but the ordinance in the county code, the chapter is repealed.
Okay.
So, yeah, semantics probably, but if it's helpful, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. And I will say that I have gotten a few emails from people that don't want this to happen. You know, some people are arguing about the fairness of it, that, well, we get taxed, nobody's eliminated our tax, but this is a cultivation tax, you know, that no other agricultural industry has, no other business has. I mean, they all have wholesale and retail taxes and all kinds of other things, but none of them have this kind of tax. So, I mean, that's, I think, at least for me, that's always been sort of a defining element of, you know, wanting to support this industry. And in the fairness realm, I get it. People are wondering, where's my relief, you know? But very simple and different issues there is what I would say. So, thank you.
Supervisor Bone.
Yeah, this in no way takes away personal property tax, anything. So I'd like to make a motion to accept staff's recommendation. And the reason the word repeal is in there, I think, as he mentioned, I think it's for future boards to know how serious we were about it. We weren't just taken away for a year or two. We were hoping to repeal it. So I'd like to make a motion that we do staff's recommendation and repeal the Measure S tax, or the ordinance.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second Is it all right if I go to public comment? Public comment online?
There is none.
Is there any public comment in the room?
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Ross Gordon on behalf of Humboldt County Growers Alliance. I'll be brief. Really appreciate all your deliberation on this. We support the repeal of Measure S. We feel it's the right option after many years of discussion on this, and appreciate Supervisor Madrone and Supervisor Bone both pointing out that this is a special tax paid only by cannabis farmers, set at a time when we were looking at a much different market than we have today. And very clearly over the past several years, what we've seen is that people just don't have the ability to pay. So really appreciate this sort of gesture of support and urge you to move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any supervisor have anything more to say before we move to a vote? Is there any objection to unanimous consent? Seeing none, we have moved on to the next item. Thanks, guys.
Can we have unanimous with one abstaining? But I'm just saying, by law, I mean, we're being so picky.
Sure.
Thank you, Chair. Supervisor Arroyo?
Yes.
Supervisor Madrone?
Yes.
Supervisor Bone?
Yep.
Chair Wilson?
Yep.
Motion carries 4-0.
All right. I don't know if there's a difference between those two things, but that's a question for our legal staff later. We'll talk about it. Okay, so the next thing on the docket is the adoption of the 2026 legislative platform. Take it away, Sean Quincy.
All right, we'll go back to back here. Good afternoon again. Oh,
Hold on, we forgot Michelle.
we can bring her back.
And we cannot forget Michelle. We're just moving along. Moving right along. Dun, 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 dun. Start over.
All right.
You were
thanks
remembered.
again, Chair,
abstention.
and welcome back, Supervisor Bushnell. Sean Quincy with the County Administrative Office. This item is the annual item to adopt the legislative platform. This is the 2026 version. We have online with us our state advocates from Shaw Yoder and Tuish Melzer and Lang, and federal advocates from Paragon Government Relations. First, before we get into some of the details on the document itself, I want to thank departments, your board, and our advocates for their work over the past few months to develop the draft 2026 legislative platform. The legislative platform is an overarching document that expresses your board's wishes and changes, wishes for changes at the state and federal levels to better the county and our community. Each year, staff from across the county and your board follow legislative issues and advocate according to the platform. At the end of the state session, departments and your board work with our office to meet with our lobbyists to discuss pain points and opportunities for advocacy in the year ahead. In September, we met with Shaw Yoder to go over state issues, and in November, we met with Paragon to talk about federal issues. The results of those meetings are expressed in the platform before you now. A quick note on the organization of the platform. The document is broken up into several sections, which largely align with the way that the California State Association of Counties organizes its platform. This allows for easier relating when we're tracking issues. There's also an overarching legislative goals section at the beginning of the platform that can span several years. I do want to go over some of the significant changes to the platform. There's a redline version of the document in your packet, but I want to provide some context. We'll go over the federal changes first, and then we have Paragon that will give a brief overview on where things stand at the congressional level. In the Ag, Environment, and Natural Resources section on page 5, platform number 3, the Climate Resilience platform. This applies actually to both the state and federal sections. We added some references for sustainability, which are largely aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Item 3A, we added an item here that speaks to providing local governments with tools to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, like building codes and land use regulations. On page 4, platform number 4, the energy section, item 4D, we added an item that states our opposition to offshore oil and gas drilling, which follows resolution 25-150, which was adopted by your board last year. Page 10, platform number 8, around water, item 8G, we added an item here that seeks reauthorization of the drinking water and clean drinking water state revolving fund programs, as they are used to finance a variety of issues for rural and disadvantaged communities. On page 10, platform number 9, around forest management and wildfire prevention, we simply restated that item for clarity. On page 11, the emergency services section, platform number 2, we added 2 items here. The FEMA Review Council is evaluating FEMA's disaster response recovery programs and long-term resilience efforts, and it will recommend potential reforms likely in March. And we want to ensure that those reforms do not increase our cost share requirements, and we want to simplify and accelerate the process with a universal disaster assistance application. In the government finance and technology section, on page 16, we're adding a new platform, 1F, cybersecurity grants for local governments. The funding for this program has been reduced significantly, and we want to fund that program more so we can have access to bolster our cybersecurity. Page 21, the Health and Human Services section, platform number 1 on children, youth, and families, item IE. We're adding protections from the impacts of HR 1. Which has significantly impacted our county, as you are well aware, specifically in this regard to help eligible CalFresh households maintain benefits and avoid federal cost shifts regarding who pays for benefits and administration costs for SNAP. On page 21, platform 3 on homelessness assistance, we're changing the name of it actually to housing and homeless assistance, and item 3A around housing and homelessness, we're adding an item here to protect funding for permanent supportive housing. And the final 3 are more around the impacts of HR 1. Page 22, platform number 5 on public health. We're adding an item that speaks to helping Medi-Cal beneficiaries maintain coverage and providing funding for indigent health programs. Page 23, platform 6 on administration of HHS programs, item 6C. We're adding an item here which deals with the newly imposed work requirements. We want to make sure that they are aligned between CalFresh and Medi-Cal. And with that, I'll give a quick stop and hand it over to Joe Cron to give the lay of the land of where things stand federally. And then I'll come back with the state issues. Joe, are you there?
I am, Sean. Thank you for the introduction, the walkthrough on the platform. I have my colleague Hassan Sour here with me as well. He has to jump at the top of the hour, so just give you a fair warning there. He needs to jump off in about 5 minutes. Lay of the land federally is, I think, uncertainty out here in DC. I think a number of issues are swirling around nationally. I'll just say this on Capitol Hill, since Congress came back into session, so to start the second session of the 119th Congress, the big focus has been on finishing up the budget, the appropriations bills that Congress did not finish going back to last October 1. Board members will recall that that's when the start of the federal fiscal year is, so they did not complete the budget. As things stand today, basically half of the appropriations bills have been enacted. But the other half, and there's some big departments and agencies in there, Department of Labor, Health and Human Services, Department of Transportation, Homeland Security, are funded on a shoestring budget. That budget authority expires Friday at midnight, and there's a huge debate going on right now out here as far as the path forward to avoid a partial government shutdown and to get those appropriations bills over the finish. And a lot of this has to do with the controversy coming out of Minneapolis with the DHS agents and the shooting that occurred there recently. Again, there are congressional Democrats are looking to pull out the Department of Homeland Security funding, separate it from other bills, and trying to extract some policy changes within that. And some congressional Republicans are pushing back on that. So there's a lot of back and forth on the budget. stay tuned on that. It seems to be kind of changing by the hour, but again, the big focus has been on the fiscal side, and since they came back into session earlier this month, and it's about avoiding again another government shutdown, which, as you all know, we just came off the heels of the longest shutdown in history. So avoiding that partial shutdown and getting that budget done. There are some other issues as well, and that we can highlight. I think folks have been following the fact that the Trump administration has continued to take some administrative actions, attempts to freeze funding for certain programs, in some cases targeted at certain states, California being one of them. There's been a lot of court cases back and forth as the administration has tried to freeze funding for programs like Social Services Block Grant, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. So that litigation, that's something we are watching very closely. And again, we're seeing a lot of different executive actions come out, again, in the early stages now of 2026 that we're tracking. On the congressional front, and I'm going to keep this brief and wrap up here in a minute. It's an election year, midterm election year. I think the window will close relatively soon in terms of bipartisan opportunities to get things done on Capitol Hill. That's not to suggest they won't get anything done, but they're going to try to look to do it early in the session so it doesn't bleed into the fall elections. There's things like a transportation reauthorization bill that Congress needs to approve. There's a Water Resources Development Act. That's an Army Corps bill that Congress really wants to get done. Sean had mentioned the state revolving fund programs. Those need to be reauthorized this year. So there are a number of sort of big ticket bills that Congress will look to finish up and wrap up. But again, I think the window's going to close pretty early. And Hassan, I'll lose you here in a minute or two. Do you want to add anything in before you have to jump?
No, I think Joe pretty much, covered the gamut there. The big topic, has been funding for the government. If this bill came before the Senate last week, it would have passed and would have had the entire budget funded for the rest of the fiscal year. But yeah, after the events in Minnesota this past weekend, it's sort of renewed the debate around DHS. They're trying to find a path forward at this point. There's not a lot of appetite for another government shutdown. Doesn't really help anybody. It's pretty damaging. The problem is all 6 of those bills that Joe mentioned, they're all bundled in one package. So if they take that DHS spending bill out, it'll have to go back to the House for another vote. The House is not in session this week. So could see a short government shutdown until next week if they can, figure something out here. It's sort of unlikely at this point. They're looking to the White House for maybe some executive action, some kind of deal they can strike where they'll be able to pass these bills, but then still do some reforms on on ICE and DHS spending in general. So it's really up in the air at this point. Odds are that we could see a government shutdown. This one won't be as maybe damaging as the previous one. I know SNAP benefits, CalFresh benefits, all they lapsed during the last one. That Department of Agriculture bill is passed, so we're not going to see that same issue. But you will see issues with TSA, air traffic control. I know that was a big issue last time, and a few of these other agencies that aren't funded. So keep an eye on that. Unclear where they're going to go sort of immediately after they figure out the budget, but it's something it's a huge topic of conversation. One more thing I'll talk about the budget is there's talks for the FY27 budget, at least in the House, to open up the Labor, Health, and Human Services spending bill for earmarks. And I know we've talked about the Public Health Lab being one of those that we've suggested. We haven't been able to submit that to the House. It sounds like maybe there will be an opportunity on that program going forward for FY27. But with that, happy to turn it back over to Sean.
All right. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And we'll get to some of the earmarks right at the end of this. I do want to get on to the state changes in the platform before we hand it off to Karen Lang to give us an overview of the state issues. If we could bring up, thank you so much. In the Ag, Environment, and Natural Resources section, platform number 1 on cannabis, item 1A, we're adding an item there. The CDFA is their appellations program will open this year, and we want to ensure that the state continues to support administration of the program, and also to keep an eye out for the potential to pull in external resources to support farmers who want to apply for the appellation. Item 1G, page 3, we're actually removing this item. We've got several items that we're removing. 1G was around the maintenance of effort calculation that the Ag Commissioner's Office needed to do. For years, we advocated to allow the time spent on cannabis to count towards the MOE there so that we could get additional gas tax revenue. That issue was decided, and unfortunately, we have not been able to secure those funds in the way that we wanted to. So we're removing that item now. Platform number 2, around agriculture, page 3, item 2B. We're removing this item. It was around seeking funding for CEQA documentation for wildlife services, and this was completed recently, so no need to have it in there anymore. And item 2F, we're removing this item on disposing of mammalian carcasses. AB 411 was signed by the governor last year, and that provided some relief for the issue ongoing. Humboldt supported this bill last year. Platform number 4, around energy on page 6, item 4C, this is around offshore wind timelines. Due to all the federal headwinds, there have been efforts at the state, or at least questions posed at the state, to slow down some of the timelines, and we want to make sure that we try to keep those timelines as aggressive as possible to ensure that these projects get off the ground. Item number 6, around solid waste management, page 8, item 8B. I'm sorry, item 6B, the CRV pilot program. This is a temporary program right now. We want it to become permanent. Item 6C, around household hazardous waste and emergency flares. Your board actually has supported bills on these topics the last 2 years, and so we just want to etch that into stone as these bills are likely to come back this year. Last slide before I hand it over to Karen. On the emergency services platform, page 11, platform number 1, on forest, fire, and EMS. Item 1A, EMS on state highways. We're just doing some more clarifying on this platform. This platform has been in our program for years. Item 1C, we are adding to the broader issue about allowing taxing of commercial timberlands. One of the deficiencies in existing laws is that commercial timberlands are exempt from certain taxes, but there's no clear definition of what commercial timberlands are, and so we're asking for that. And finally, on the Health and Human Services platform, platform number 3, around housing and homelessness assistance, page 21, item 3A. HAP round 6 funding was delayed 18 months, and recently only $418 out of $1 billion was awarded, and even then it was only awarded to 3 counties. And so we are asking to preserve that funding and make sure that that program is fully funded going forward. Behavioral health platform, platform 4, item 4A on page 22. This platform previously focused on fentanyl and xylazine, and now it's a more broad platform to support legislation that prevents any overdose deaths. Last 2 items, platform number 6 on HHS administration, item 6C on page 23. There will be increased costs to perform more frequent redeterminations and to verify work requirements for Medi-Cal and CalFresh eligibility. And we're asking the state to pick up those costs rather than having local governments bear those costs. And finally, on child support, item 7B, on page 23, the federal government allows states to use Title IV-D funding for more flexible purposes, but in order to do that, the state has to amend its child support plan, and this platform asks the state to do that. And so with that, I will hand it over to Karen to tell us about all things state.
Hi, Supervisors. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. And thanks to Sean for all the work getting your platform into the shape that it is in. I wanted to sort of set the table for where we're headed here in 2026. We are, from a point in time perspective, we're just at the very beginning of the 2nd year of the 2-year session. You may have been reading through social media or from your department heads that there's been some legislative activity already. In the 2nd year of a 2-year session, there are bills that were sort of stuck in the 1st year that never got out of its first house, and it only has until, those bills only have until the end of this month to get out, or they're truly dead. So there's been quite a flurry of activity here this week. 2 bills of note for your board. One, a measure that when it was first heard 2 weeks ago would have banned the sale of kratom and also nitrous cartridges that were being used recreationally. I know it's very important to a couple of your supervisors from a public health perspective, especially the NOx cartridges. The bill's been amended down pretty substantially over concerns raised from both the kratom industry, so they're no longer in the bill, and now we're down to electronic cartridges only in the bill. I don't think it's the last we're going to hear about the nitrous cartridges or kratom, but that a skeleton of a bill from 2 weeks ago is still moving on that front. And then there was a measure that wasn't truly a 2-year bill, but a lot of counties leaned in on. It was a veteran services bill that would prohibit charging veterans for services they're entitled to by law. That measure actually was approved and sent to the governor yesterday, and that was something that many counties came together to support. Now that we're about through with this little flurry, it's going to settle down a little bit. We're going to be starting to see more bills that get introduced, and every day we review those. We'll send the ones we think are of interest to you to Sean so that he's aware of them. We do have a new Senate leader. Senator Monique Limon is from the Central Coast, and in the 20 years I've been lobbying, this is the first time that we've had 2 leaders from the Central Coast at the same time. Speaker Rivas is from Monterey. Pro Tem Limon is from Santa Barbara. So that's an interesting dynamic. We'll see if that really has great influence on anything, but it just seems to be worth noting, so I want to say it out loud. The election for June and November of this year will certainly have huge impacts on the way that folks behave during the session this year. We're also going to have a special congressional election that has a primary consolidated with the June election, and then an August runoff if necessary. And we will know by March 6th what the candidate field looks like across the statewide offices. Getting to budget, the governor released his initial budget January 9th. He actually had his director of finance, Joe Steffenshaw, present it to the legislature. The thing that I would want to leave you with, if you remember one thing from this morning or this afternoon, the legislative analyst, which is the nonpartisan entity that analyzes the Department of Finance projections and provides feedback to the legislature on initiatives and various policies, they identified that the state would have an $18 billion deficit in the 26-27 fiscal year that the budget would need to address. And then with a great caution that out-year deficits are going to become even more severe based on our spending patterns versus our revenue growth. The governor's budget deeply disagreed with that forecast and identified that we only have a $2.9 billion deficit. And I'm sure you're wondering how on earth it's possible that the difference could be that significant. And I think as I've sat before you in years past, you know that the state's revenue is incredibly reliant on a small number of incredibly wealthy people doing quite well on the stock market and with their personal income taxes. It is an outsized, beyond outsized contributor to our general fund, and the governor's forecasted budget relies on a very healthy, continuously growing and healthy stock market, and as a result of that, really high returns on PIT and capital gains. So we're building a budget potentially on that, and I think there's a lot of concern there that if that falters, it's reasonable to be concerned. If those performance metrics aren't met, there's going to be some very painful decisions that the legislature will have to make to balance the budget. And for the public's benefit, we are required in California to have a constitutionally balanced budget, meaning that the state's revenue forecast must match the spending plan. We do not do true deficit spending in California. It's not authorized, so we have to know how much we're going to bring in so that we can have a spending plan that matches it. And one of the major things that was missing from the governor's Jan 10 budget was a plan for HR 1. And your updated platform reflects some of the concerns around not having a good plan. There are reductions in federal revenue to the counties for how you implement some of the programs you're mandated to do now. In addition, over the next year or so, about a year and a half, counties are going to need to do more with respect to qualifying people for services that you administer as a county. We've never really qualified people for SNAP before in a way that involved human interaction, and now we're going to need to do that, as well as re-qualifying people for CalWorks twice a year. And so you're going from never doing something to doing something new with no resources, in addition to doubling your workload for a different set of benefits. And in addition to all of that, folks that lose their subsidy but are still eligible to purchase insurance may fall off because they don't have any other financial alternative but to not pay their insurance premiums, or folks that are ineligible to purchase insurance at all will be coming back to counties. You are situated through the CMSP board, the County Medical Services Program. Your county administrator is on the board, which is a great thing for the county. She'll be able to track very closely what CMSP is doing in this space. CMSP is the buffer for medically indigent adults that counties need to be the safety net for. It's been a really long time since counties have been responsible for this population, that when the Affordable Care Act was approved and enacted, most folks that were medically indigent were able to migrate onto the healthcare exchange with subsidy. And now that those are going away, they're coming back, and now counties are going to be in this place that they haven't been for quite a while. And of course, medical inflation outpaces regular inflation. So these sort of policy and fiscal gaps that we don't know how to respond to yet are very concerning. The governor said in the January budget that he would come back in May to have a more detailed proposal for how we're going to implement HR 1 here. That's a very short period of time between the middle of May and the middle of June for counties to respond to that kind of budget. It's a very meaty policy proposal and fiscal proposal that we would be responding to in a very short period of time, and counties are situated differently. You're a CMSP county. There are counties that run public hospitals, and that's how they deal with the medically indigent. There are two different kinds of counties that pick these formulas that they true up for the population that's left over, and the budget is going to have to address all four types of counties. So what we've been trying to do in the meantime, we cannot wait to talk to your legislators about at least the facts on the ground for you. So we've been working through your county administrator's office to develop a fact sheet of the county's profile with your hospitals, because your hospitals are also at grave risk. Your clinics that are providing healthcare to this population now, the number of folks that are on SNAP, the number of folks that are on CalWorks, what your profile looks like for the eligibility workers that you have, to make sure that your legislative delegation, small but mighty, are very familiar with what your situation is, so that when we finally have something to respond to or advocate around, we're not also building the educational pieces at the same time. We're trying to make sure that everybody in your delegation understands from the jump what the concerns are around HR 1. We will see the only new money that you're probably going to see proposed is some additional allocations out of Prop 4, which is the $10 billion resources bond that was approved in 2024. The governor is proposing to spend about $2.5 billion out of that in 26-27. The legislature gets to have opinions about that too. So we will see how they want to see those resources expended. It does look like there was a housing bond proposed for the June ballot, but the amendments that were put into those bills in the last week move it out to the November ballot. So there could be a housing bond on the November ballot, but based on interest rates and general fund spending capacity, that may become less likely, but we will see. And then we expect to see the carrier of last resort legislation come back. The author of that bill has said that they will bring the bill back in 2026. They believe they've had more time to work on the issue. I would remind your board, Senator McGuire was a terrific ally to the county on this issue. His staff was very solicitous of the concerns of the North Coast, since so many of your constituents can only truly rely on landline service. So we do anticipate them trying again on that bill with the same author. And looking ahead, obviously a pretty big fight going on in court right now over Proposition 50, which does affect you. But if it is upheld by the Supreme Court, you will have that election occurring with basically new candidates in November. In addition to regular statewide, the statewide ballot will be on the November ballot, so new governor, lieutenant governor, et cetera. and it's the governor's last year as governor. So he will be looking, I think, to sort of burnish his resume on on his way out the door. So who knows what all he will be trying to do, but HR 1 I think will sort of almost subsume us as we get farther into this year. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I hope I covered it all, and I apologize for giving you sort of a doom and gloom overview. It's just that HR 1 is, you know, a very serious matter, and it's got the full attention of the county lobbying corps to try to protect you going into this year, and to do the best for the most, I should say, when it comes to the resources that you'll have to try to hold up the safety net for people that are relying on those programs. So thanks, Sean.
Great. Thank you, Karen. And that leads me into the next portion of our platform is to talk about our legislative priorities, which Karen and Joe and Hassan covered really well in their discussions there. So the pieces that we are asking for your board to weigh in on today are threefold. Number one is changes to just the text that's in the legislative platform. Is there any fine tuning that you want us to do? Are there any changes that you have questions about that you don't want us to make? Let us know. The second piece is on our legislative priorities. We only have so much time and so much resources. And so in order to make the best out of that time and resources, we've developed some priorities. And these are the things that we are going to be advocating most on at the county. Protecting funding for housing, state funding to hire more eligibility workers to do a lot of the work that Karen was talking about, funding to support the county's indigent health programs, again, in light of HR 1. Other state issues, allowing taxing of commercial timberland, sustainable response on state highways. This is specifically around the Highway 299 issue. Ensuring the county can access funding for climate resiliency and sustainability around Prop 4. And again, the offshore wind related to timelines, trying to make sure that we stick to those timelines. Those are the priorities that we have identified. It doesn't mean that we won't advocate on other issues throughout the year, but this is where we're kind of our true north for the year is. The second piece that we wanted your board to weigh in on is on the earmark and budget requests, the earmark requests that Hassan mentioned. At the federal level, our top 3 projects that we are lobbying that we want to ask our legislators to carry and include in the federal budget: Public Health Lab, Redwood Drive, and Scenic Drive. We often get asked to prioritize those requests, and rather than doing it just at staff level, we're asking your board to do that here. At the state level, our top 5 requests are capacity building for offshore wind, again, the Public Health Lab. There's a document digitization project that Planning and Building has identified. Again, Redwood Drive and Scenic Drive. So different flavor, just different order at the state and federal level. A lot of that has to do with the federal federal earmarks don't go towards staff time. And so that's the reason for some of the differences there. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. I'm going to put this out to public comment first, and then we'll come back to the board. Is there anyone online?
Yes, Chair. Caller 7718, I will unmute you and you'll have 3 minutes.
Ken Sawatsky, when it comes down to prioritizing your your budget request with the federal and the state, personally, I would recommend that you put the Public Health Lab as far as number 1 for both of those. The outlook that I see and other people see regarding our health care in Humboldt County, and some of which was brought to your attention here coming from the state, is quite bleak. At any time, we could lose either of our 2 major carriers, in other words, either Providence or Open Door Health. And should that happen, you can imagine the deterioration of what we have here. Anything else we can do to take care of health is way more important than these other topics. I did wish to make a comment regarding the composting of mammals' carcasses that says we're taking care of. That's not necessarily what I've heard about. Maybe composting is part of the solution. We still have a major problem with our ranches as far as how to dispose of mammal carcasses. And until such time as we have something equivalent of a rendering plan or something like that, I think that should be a priority as far as taking care of the environment. Regarding offshore wind, I will again assert we're tilting at windmills on that one, and that's pretty well a waste of time as far as I can tell to put any kind of your snooze into that particular thing, especially with what's coming out of the federal government at this time. And I do agree that our fortunately soon-to-be ex-governor is going to try and feather his bed here to make himself look as good as he can. I don't see that happening. I think what you're going to find is that regarding taxation and things, if the people who have all these long-term gains or these major stock market gains have brain one, they're going to continue to move out of the state and go to states where they're not taxed as much. That's just plain and simple common sense. And so I believe you will see the state budget and, of course, the money we get from that on a continual downward trail, and that's not very promising, but I think that we've had a whole bunch of Mr. Potato Head moves in the state, and I think you're going to be affected by those. Thank you for my opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Caller 3053, I will unmute you and you will have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Thomas Mulder here. I was calling legislative platform. Please make sure you focus on things that are going to help the people that live in this community, not trying to put a bunch of money and taxpayer dollars into things that look great or sound great. I'll warn your assembly members and senators in the state of California, you change things. You know, Assembly Bill 1950. Rule an unusual punishment to, punish people for more than 3 years that have stolen. But please support the timber industry, fishing industry, natural resources that we have within our community. Please don't try to continue to push and over-regulate. The offshore wind thing seems interesting. I don't know. It's coin flip, depends on who you talk to there. And support our healthcare system. Thankfully, my son's alive because we have a hospital here in this county. We didn't have that kind of thing. I mean, many of families probably wouldn't have loved ones around, so it's an important thing as well. But please don't waste our taxpayer dollars. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
That is all on Zoom, Chair.
All right, do we have any public in the room that wants to speak to the legislative agenda? All right.
Ross Gordon again with Humboldt County Growers Alliance, and I'll wear my other hat for this one with Origins Council. As you may know, HCGA has partnered with Origins Council for our government affairs work at the state and federal level. Also work with trade associations in Mendocino, Trinity, and on the Central Coast to represent small cannabis farmers. Just wanted to say a few quick things about cannabis policy this year. First, want to thank staff for including the language about appellations in the legislative platform. It's been 10 years since we were first discussing this. The county's always been really supportive of an appellations program, and although it's been a long time, we are looking forward to the program hopefully opening this year, and there's still a lot of excitement on the ground among cultivators for that, and really want to encourage you to see this as a really significant economic development opportunity in the county. It's something that will require some upfront investment from the state in terms of running the program, from cultivators in terms of participating. But it's something that can really set a long-term foundation for economic development here, and development really based in the most sustainable agricultural practices. The other thing just wanted to mention is we are anticipating this will be a pretty busy year actually in terms of cannabis policy at the state level. A number of different bills that seem they may be introduced, some already have been introduced, that could be relevant to farmers here. And then on the regulatory side as well, as you may be aware, we have a new director of Department of Cannabis Control, Clint Kellum, after several years of Nicole Elliott as the director of the agency. And I think that provides a lot of opportunities as well to revisit some of the issues which have really been sticking points here, and hopefully to make some progress that can really support our local farmers. So just wanted to mention all those things and appreciate all your consideration. Thanks.
Great. Is there anybody else? See, now I'm going to take it back to the board. I'll just, Supervisor Madrone, you can go first on your comments and/or questions.
Thank you, Chair. Well, first of all, thank you to our legislative representatives and to Sean and our staff for all the hard work every year on this. And every year it gets a little better, a little more refinements, all that kind of stuff. I appreciate the stuff that's in there. I will say we're really lucky that the voters locally supported Measure O, which has really given us a chance locally to improve our roads and staffing to accomplish all that. So, but it would be really nice to see that same kind of support, state and federal, with DHSS programs and fire services and things like that. And there's a lot of great things in our platform to support that, like the part about state commercial timberlands definition. I was glad to see on that second to the last slide, if you could put that back up, where you basically also said working to, no, yeah, right there. Nope, that one, yes. So to, where is it right there in the middle? Allowing taxing of commercial timberland. So it's not just changing the commercial definition. I was glad to see this second part in it, which I also read in our more detailed platform. But allowing that to happen so that we can really support our volunteer fire departments all over the county, that's crucial to that. And on sustaining emergency response on highways, it's not just 299. I just want to be clear, it's Highway 101, 299, 96, and 36. All the state highways have this issue with volunteer fire departments being stretched really thin to respond to EMS services on all those areas. The more remote the highway is, the more the need is great, like 299 for sure, 36 as well. So I just wanted to offer that clarification just for our own edification. Lastly, on the last slide, the next one there, you know, I absolutely support these rankings and these list of priorities for us as a county. And actually last year, Senator Schiff carried Scenic Drive in his platform. And I think it was because the price tag was $1 million. Now that's not to do all the work on Scenic Drive, but that's the preliminary engineering work that is necessary to be able to then get the money to do the repair work. Each of these has a different price tag, and I said this last year that depending on what kind of money is available, people, various senators and congressmen may decide to grab onto one or the other because of what they think they can, you know, push. And right now for Democrats, it's not a great time to push, you know, earmarks in Congress, but that could change in the near future. So I absolutely support keeping these lists together. And again, thank you for your work, Sean, and everybody else on this. Appreciate it.
Great. Supervisor, none? Supervisor Ball? No? Yeah. Supervisor Roy?
Thank you. Really appreciate all your work on this, Sean, and our team of lobbyists who provide such great updates to us on the regular and including in this meeting. I mean, our legislative platform is very robust, but I appreciate the priorities that you highlighted, and I appreciate that it covers a lot of ground, and part of that is that it allows us the opportunity to act quickly to support, to provide letters of support or letters of opposition as the dynamic kind of legislative cycle unfolds, and so that's a huge part of the utility of this document. So I know we communicated a little bit about, I got some feedback from just very kind of right before this yesterday from our Housing Authority Director with some suggested language for this, but after Sean and I communicated a bit, the topic of increasing funding and access to subsidized housing programs is in our legislative platform. It isn't in as much detail as the Housing Authority Executive Director provided, but it is covered, so I think it's sufficient as is. So, and if we need to expand on that in any advocacy letters, we can certainly refer to Cheryl's input. So thank you for that. And I also wanted to note that I think we only have the red line copy here. So if we could get a final clean copy, that'd be handy. Otherwise, yeah, I am ready to vote.
All right, I have a couple of comments and I have a couple questions. First of all, HR 1 is a horrendous abomination. What I want to reference is like we have a current federal administration who just is, and I just don't understand why it's not clear. Their attacks on rural America is just insane. The impacts to rural people in this country and in this state and in these communities is just, it is crazy. The pullback of the services, not just all the medical services and the food subsidies and everything else. That's just it really impacts rural people more than anybody else on a per capita basis. But also the pullback and the just non-discussion around infrastructure, transportation and energy and everything else, and even the removal of those things also disproportionately impacts rural people in this country and in this county and other places. So it is so weird to me that there seems to be this sort of cultural veneer to this administration, as if they're supporting rural America because they support sort of cultural touchstones that maybe they feel that speak to certain people. But on the ground, the impacts to rural people and rural communities in terms of infrastructure and funding for the things that keep our life and civilization together is under attack, and it's just terrible. And so I want to thank our lobbyists to keeping those things front and center in terms of our advocacy, and our board of supervisors in their roles in our state and federal capacity to address that. So I just wanted to, just as overarch. Second, I just want to get into just a couple things. I was wondering, did I miss it? Because I was wondering if there's any language in here to support public transit, so that when there are bills that support public transit for this community, I didn't see that in there. And is that something we can add at some point if it's not in there? Because I want to make sure that we don't have to come back to the board every time there's legislation that supports rural public transit. And so that was something I wanted to emphasize, because we have supported that in the past individually by, in terms of what we put forward. And so I apologize for putting this on you just now, because I know I've talked to you about this stuff, and so now all of a sudden I see something that I didn't see, or I don't see what I would like to see in there, and I was just wondering what we could do about that.
No, and I appreciate that. We don't have anything specifically on point for public transit.
Okay.
What I will say is that we do have a pretty robust section on climate resiliency and sustainability.
Okay.
And we can add language there that even just a quick phrase that talks about, and rural public transit.
Okay.
And then expand upon it in next year's legislative platform, or at a mid-year amendment or something like that.
Okay, so we could just today add something that just to put the words public transit in there, so we're supportive of public transit funding, and we can kind of move on from there. Okay, great. Through staff, does that language have to be very specific in this moment, or can we just give direction that we want something in there that does that?
No, I think it could be just general direction, and I can workshop that. Maybe you can give authorization to the chair or vice chair to finalize it.
I appreciate that.
May I note that there is, under complete streets, it does say support legislation to provide additional funding for active transportation and transit facilities. So it could just say facilities and operations.
Sure.
And that would probably take care of the.
Appreciate that. Thank you. This one is a little more, I would say, a little more abstract, but it's something that we have dealt with, and I would say it's actually very, very specific. We had legislation last year that sought to expand the entitlements and the longevity of billboards along our scenic highways, and And we wrote letters again, in response to that. What I don't want to have to happen is to have to bring that back again necessarily. We took a position on that, and I feel like we should have language in our legislative platform that protects or basically opposes the extension of non-conforming billboard structures on our public roads and highways as a legislative, because we've taken that position. And again, these are structures that are non-conforming to our own codes now. The history of this goes back to 1965 and with the Federal Highways Act, and then 1972 with the Outdoor Advertising Act, which basically sought to phase out non-conforming billboard structures to protect and enhance our beautiful highways in our most scenic areas. And we've sort of forgotten about that a little bit. And so the legislature last year tried to, at some point, change that entitlement so that they would extend those in forever. And I don't see the population asking for that. And so I would like to have language that continues our opposition to that expansion of entitlement for those structures in our scenic highways. Those are my two requests in relation to this. And again, we already took a stance on that. The language is very clear in the letters that we've already sent on this. So if we could take something from that to update our legislative agenda, that would be great. Those are my comments. I'm willing to see where our board goes from here. And I see Supervisor Bushnell might have something to say.
Chair, I'm sorry
Yes.
to interrupt. I'm having a technical issue. Yes. Can we take a 5-minute break, please?
We are going to take a 5-minute break. Ready to roll? Okay, we took a quick, pretty close to 5-minute break. Good job. Yeah, got us through that. And to deal with some technical difficulties, so we're back in the space, in the room, and we are having a discussion about the legislative agenda. I just had some comments and some suggestions, but then also I want to make sure before we get through this, you had a specific request that we rank the items that we want funded. It's the special funding items.
Yeah,
And so, okay.
the earmark and budget requests.
Earmark the budget requests. Okay, so let's do that part right now, and then we'll get to trying to formulate a motion and then move through this item. So can we want to bring up that list, and let's see how we can move forward with the suggestion on sort of the ranking of those. And I noticed there was we had 3 ranked before, and there's a couple now more added to that. And is your suggestion that we actually add more to that ranking, or remove some, or what's your suggestion?
So on the federal level, and maybe Joe could weigh in on this too. On the federal level, there's some pretty stringent guidelines as to what is allowed to be funded, because all these projects flow through existing funding channels. They're just put at the top of the list. Those existing funding channels have restrictions, and so like I mentioned before, the capacity building for offshore wind funding request, there's a lot of staff costs in there just to help us engage, but it's not eligible for federal funding under any existing programs. So the projects that we have, there's 3 projects in the federal earmark request kind of bucket, and 5 projects in the state bucket, just for eligibility reasons.
Can you bring those back up again?
Yeah,
Sean, please?
yeah, bring those back up so we can take a look at it, make a suggestion, have a hopefully short conversation about that and move forward.
Here we go.
Okay.
Yeah, so the public health lab, that's a $5 million request from the federal government to finish that project. The Redwood Drive project, that price tag has kind of fluctuated. But I will say at the federal level, these projects often get funded at a maximum of about $5 million. This project has been picked up several years in a row by our legislators. It just hasn't made its way into the final budget. The Scenic Drive project, like you mentioned, was picked up by Senator Schiff last year. Again, didn't make it through the second phase. On the state side, we're asking for those same things. The offshore wind is at the top of the list just because this is really a critical stage. We feel like at the beginning, in the early phases, and at this phase where a lot of decisions can be made that could change the timelines or will affect the way that we create programs to support offshore wind. So that's why we want to have that one at the top of the list there. Public health lab is there. Number 2, the document digitization is for about $700,000 or $800,000 on the state side, and then Redwood Drive and Scenic Drive. Those are still eligible for state funding, but a little bit lower down the list.
So just to clarify on this, you have earmarks on the federal side. On the state side, there's not really a prioritization list because it would really come from different places, right? I mean, funding for Redwood Drive would come from a different
Correct.
place than the capacity building for offshore wind, so it's not really necessarily a prioritization on that side, as far as I can understand, because they would come from, you would be making those requests as they come up.
This only comes into play. We have to pitch this to our legislators. We've got to pitch this to Senator McGuire and Assemblymember Rogers. And they're only able to carry so many items. And so if they're thinking, how can I support Humboldt? What's the number one most important thing that Humboldt needs this year? I can only pick 1 or 2 of these things. That's what we're trying to set up. This really came into play the first year that earmarks came back in, I want to say in 2021, when our federal legislators were really pressing us to see what are the top priorities for Humboldt. In that case, we got a couple projects funded that year.
Okay, so I assume staff reached out to our various departments, and I mean, we need to. I'm looking at that list, and I'm just assuming that there's been some vetting happening here through the various departments, because we've had conversations around our parks department and the needs for upgrades to various facilities and our needs to upgrade. Like there could be a pretty long list of public works related projects that may raise to the level of being important to a broad number of constituents. So.
Right. So
Okay.
when we go out to draft the legislative platform and we ask for additions or changes,
Right.
the earmark requests are part of that package.
Yep.
And so these earmark requests have been carried over from year to year.
Right.
A lot of these are nothing new. The only new one is the planning and building document digitization project.
I see. All right. Well, so there's not a. I see where we are at this point, but this is something that could be updated if other priorities come along.
Sure,
right? Is
absolutely.
that how that would work? Okay. So, okay. So there's a lot going on, and we may refocus that at some point in the future, because if they're not getting funded, I'm not. At some point, maybe we should be rethinking some of those ideas.
Mhm.
But in the current context, there's no other ideas on the that we have before us today. So this is what we've got.
This is what we got in the hopper right now.
I appreciate it, and and personally, I think the ranking is fine.
Yeah,
in my mind.
and at the state level, sometimes our legislators will just pick through, and they won't even ask us what's the most important. They'll say, I'm most interested in XYZ project, and so I'm going to carry that one.
Okay, and I appreciate the board allowing me to sort of lead that off, and Supervisor Bushnell has some comments on this.
Sure. So around the public work asks, I think I kind of see where Supervisor Wilson was going. The one for the Garberville Streets project came as an infrastructure project that was on infrastructure was on Biden's top priorities, and it was involving Garberville water, the drainage to the Eel River, to South Fork of the Eel River, a lot of components. And so it wasn't just a Garberville complete, the Complete Streets project was complete with new pipes, new this, new that. And so I think that when we look at those lists, we need to really understand them as in, context to them and why they still are there. Additionally, there have been funds that have come forward for some of those projects already for design and review and so forth and so on. And so with the Measure O funds that we've got now from the communities, we're able to do maybe some match grants that might work to get some of those things funded. So I appreciate those still being slated on the list and still hopeful that some of those infrastructure projects can happen.
Right, and as Supervisor Bushnell is noting, some projects are farther along than others, which makes them what we call shovel-ready. So appreciate that context. Supervisor Madrone.
Thank you, Chair. I am supportive of the list as they are, and I know a lot of work's been put into that Garberville area project, and keeps trying to get to the finish point, right? So that would be great. So I'm fine with both lists as they are, and like you said, individual representatives just sometimes pick or they ask us for our prioritization, so that's great. I just wanted to give one quick note, and that is that staff at LAFCO and myself and some of the county staff, Sibel Emmett with Fire Services, have worked with Assemblyman Rogers. This is for Karen Lang's knowledge as well as yours, Sean, that we've worked with Assemblyman Rogers' staff to do a draft bill on the removing the exemption of commercial timberlands from annexation and assessments in fire districts. So there's actually a draft bill that's been put together, so there's some serious work that's been done there. No guarantee that'll actually get submitted because each ledge rep only gets so many bills each year. And they have to pick amongst, 100 different ideas to submit those. But I just want to let you know that there has been some serious preliminary work there, and that may come into play. So I just want to let you know as well, Karen. Thank you.
All right, Supervisor Arroyo.
Thanks. I feel pretty ready to proceed with what we have here. I am supportive of this addition around billboards, and maybe that is framed as scenic highway related as well. I think that's one of the aspects of it that I really appreciate, and it's consistent with our actions that we've taken as well as our billboard policies that we've enacted. So. Anyway, with that recommendation and the, what we've talked about here today, I feel ready to proceed. Are you ready for a motion, Chair?
I'm ready for a motion, but I do want to add that part of what our opposition to the state legislation related to billboards was local control. And so I wanted to make sure that because those bills were basically set to expand state discretion, and that we on those structures and which reduces local control, and I want to make sure that we're specific about that. So if you're ready to make a motion, please do.
If I may, the motion that you are considering also adds the transit operations piece.
Correct. Yeah, the word and words and operations to that transit facilities piece, as well as the item related to billboards and local control. I don't think there were any other amendments that I heard here today. I appreciate the conversation around the priority projects and the legislative goals that we're really trying to uplift out of all of our robust platform here.
Okay, was that a motion?
Yes, I'll make that motion now.
I'll second the motion to get this going. All right, I'm not sure where the board's at on this necessarily, just because we've had this discussion, so we'll take a roll call vote. Oh no, we'll just do it on the screen here. Does everyone have it up on their screen? Let's do it.
Motion carries 4-1.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Moving on. Next item. Hold on, let me bring up my... here we are. Oh, we'll get there, don't worry. And all right. Next, we have Planning and Building Department, and this is an assessment of a potential reduction in the minimum acreage required for subdivisions in the Jacoby Creek Community Planning Area. And with that, John, can you take it away?
Thank you, Chair Wilson. Good afternoon. And members of the Board of Supervisors, John Ford, Cliff Johnson, Michael Holterman, and then Patrick Owen and Mario Carlson are all here to present the findings of the process and cost needed to modify the Jacoby Creek Community Plan to allow lots to be created at less than the current 5-acre minimum and perhaps even less than the 2.5-acre minimum allowed by the general plan and the zoning ordinance. This comes to the board today in response to the board's request to look at this in consideration of an appeal submitted by Larry Henderson for a 2-lot parcel map. We did not agendize the parcel map today so that the board could consider the options relative to the community plan without having to decide on that. And then once there's a decision made and the process is known, we will bring the parcel map back for board consideration. Now I'm going to turn it over to Michael Holterman to make a presentation on what we found.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Holterman. I am presenting for the assessment of potential reduction in minimum parcel size in the Jacoby Creek area. As Director Ford had mentioned, a previous direction from the board included investigating a reduced minimum parcel size in the Jacoby Creek area, estimating the number of new units that could be created from the policy change, and providing an estimate of the cost of funding the effort. In order to better determine the number of potential new units that could be created and to estimate the funding requirements, staff also investigated studies required to support the policy change and cumulative impacts that would need to be assessed. These items are discussed later in the presentation. Here we have the area that is included, the subject area, so that would be the urban development area and all the parcels zoned residential estates. These are the areas impacted by existing policies of the Jacoby Creek Community Plan that the board wished to review. Currently, the minimum parcel size is 5 acres in the urban development area and for lands designated residential estates unless the parcels have access to public sewer and water. Based on consultation with DEH, some areas of the Jacoby Creek Community Plan may be able to accommodate a 2-acre minimum parcel size. This estimate takes into account wastewater treatment systems and their setbacks, including to wells, property lines, and structures. It also takes into account average home sizes, reserve areas, and additional considerations, such as areas for utility easements, access roads or driveways, and ancillary structures. These parcels here exceed 4 acres, so they would meet the minimum parcel size for subdivision if the minimum changed to 2 acres. It's unclear how many of the highlighted parcels actually could be subdivided, as there are a multitude of factors that parcel size alone doesn't account for. That includes slope, parcel shape, depth to groundwater, and existing water quality. The highlighted parcels here show non-standard on-site wastewater treatment systems in the northern half of the subject area. This is zoomed in just so you can get a better idea of the parcels. Some of them are relatively small. Non-standard systems include mound systems, at-grade systems, and pressure distribution systems. Here we have... Oh, I'm sorry. It froze. Oh, there it goes. Here we have parcels in the southern portion of the subject area. The average depth to water for the parcels that have recorded non-standard systems is approximately 36 inches below the ground surface. DEH requires 5 feet between the bottom of a standard septic system and the groundwater. It's important to note this is not an exhaustive display of parcels that have non-standard on-site wastewater treatment systems. There could be other parcels that have unpermitted systems or systems that predate DEH records. And as such, there may be high groundwater in areas that are not shown here. Here we see the parcels that exceed 4 acres in relation to an overlay for the non-standard systems. As you can see, the non-standard systems appear to be present in or around the clusters of parcels in a manner that makes it difficult to identify a specific pattern, thereby making it difficult to write out certain areas. So based on the information available, there appears to be a maximum of 76 new parcels that could be created if the minimum parcel size were changed to 2 acres. That assumes a full build-out of 1 primary unit, 1 ADU, and 1 JADU for a maximum potential new housing unit, 228 housing units, excuse me. Again, it's important to note that this is an estimated maximum. There are a number of factors that we couldn't accurately assess. Some of the things that we did assess were the parcel size and shape. So there were a number of narrow lots that couldn't accommodate a wastewater treatment system and setbacks to property lines. So those were removed from the calculation. We removed all the parcels below the 40-foot contour line from the calculation, as well as that is prone to flooding. We removed parcels that were entirely or almost entirely above 30% slope, and then parcels with improper zoning like the golf course. And then we also took into account existing large parcels that could be subdivided currently on paper. They meet the minimum parcel size of 5 acres to subdivide. So we accounted for those so we didn't double count, as well as parcels that have access to public water, areas that are outside the urban development area that are within residential estates land use designations are required to have a 5-acre minimum parcel size unless they have public water access. So those we took out of the calculations as well. So as I noted earlier, due to the factors that we couldn't kind of push into the calculations, we only have a projected maximum, but how many units actually could result from a policy change, reducing the minimum parcel size down to 2 acres is still very much an open question. There's also expected cumulative impacts if the density were to increase in the area. That's due to high groundwater in the area, as well as a steep increase in septic system density. So these impacts have the potential to contaminate both groundwater and surface water. And in order to accurately assess and address any cumulative impacts, a hydrogeologic groundwater investigation would be required to determine the groundwater level, availability, and existing quality in the area. A nitrate loading study would be required to estimate the impacts to water quality based on the increased density of septic systems and to ensure there's no detrimental impact to public health and safety. A VMT and GHG analysis are also required under CEQA, and a rough cost and time estimate is approximately $300,000 and a year and a half. That concludes the presentation. Staff is available for questions, and we'd also ask that you direct staff to undertake new action. Thank you.
Great. Okay, is there questions from the board before we go to public comment? No, for questions. If you have questions, Supervisor Bushnell.
Sure. So I'm just curious where the $300,000 would come from.
That's unknown at this time. It's unlikely that the current applicant could bear that cost, and since it would affect a lot of other parcels, it wouldn't be reasonable to assign it to that applicant. Otherwise, it would be something, if this county wanted to see that area change, the land use change, the zoning change, it would be a county cost.
And where would that be budgeted from?
I do not have an answer for that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Questions, Supervisor Madrone?
So that was for the environmental studies, but then there'd be a mitigated negative deck. I think that's what was listed in the staff report as the likely environmental tool. So there would be all the work that would be needed to do that, and that would be another $200,000 or $300,000. Is that a rough estimate, or what are you thinking?
No, we were anticipating the $300,000 would cover that.
That would cover the environmental permit as well.
Because the big cost there will be the technical analyses, and then the intent would really be to try to mitigate by design within the general plan, community plan and zoning. And then, so then it would just be a matter of capturing that within the negative declaration.
Have you ever had, or would it be a precedent if you raise that 300,000 by charging, well, you could only really charge a parcel that's coming forward to be split, right? If somebody's not choosing to split, you can't be charging them, so it'd be a really convoluted process to try and recoup this money by charging only those that were coming forward, which right now is just this one parcel. And as you said, that wouldn't be proportional.
Right.
So that's complicated in that way, and I will have to say that, you know, our budget right now is shot. We're spending money we don't have. Our reserves are almost gone, so I'm not quite sure how the county could actually afford that. Thank you.
Supervisor Bone, any questions? No. Let's move this to public comment online.
Thank you, Chair. Caller 2902, I will unmute you and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Lisa Brown in Bayside. I'm here to ask you to decline the proposal presented by staff. In the recently published report on the general plan and goals to implement it, there is no mention of moving in this direction, nor should we endeavor to do so now. We need to stay on course with sea level rise adaptation and management, climate-related issues, and updating community plans already identified for updating, of which Jacoby Creek is not one of. This general plan, with respect to timelines of general plans, is quite current and quite adequate. It is the result of over 66 hearings held before the board and over 100 hearings before the Planning Commission. During these hearings, supervisors received a huge amount of input for this specific area during the update. I'm sure many of you remember much of it was based on concern about the creek and the downstream flooding, which has only worsened in recent years, along with retaining the rural character and agricultural uses. Following much consideration and discussion over many years of community input and concern, the decision on the current zoning designations were made. Some compromises were made and the community settled for some change, but certainly not nearly the level of development that is being discussed here. A mitigated negative declaration would be wholly inadequate to encompass the environmental impacts that this level of development would impose on the creek, its neighbors, and wildlife. Road development, 3-acre exemption timber removals associated with home sites, slope stability, fire risk and management, and increase in impermeable surfaces, traffic and flooding on the Old Arcata Road, Graham Road, and Jacoby Creek Road, to name a few that have not yet been considered by staff. Please direct staff to continue to support our current general plan and zoning designations for the Jacoby Creek area and do not move forward with this proposal. Thank you.
Okay.
That's all on Zoom, Chair.
All right. In the chambers, is there anyone here for public comment on this item in the chambers?
Larry Henderson. Hopefully you can hear me today. So I have to admit that the speaker, I don't know who she was, but she made a lot of excellent points in terms of what are we doing here. This is complicated, but on the other hand, it is just so simple that when that Jacoby Creek plan was adopted, it had the special 5-acre requirement. When it was adopted, there was no nexus to the 5-acre restriction and the problems that we had in Jacoby Creek. The purpose for the 5-acre minimum requirement was purely at the request of the city of Arcata. I don't know where the record is, but what I can do is testify that I was involved with that planning. I'm not going to sit down that's what I heard, because that's irrelevant. But the fact is that 5-acre requirement is the only special requirement throughout the county. So if we're going to go through and we're going to do with community planning and start changing the plans, it should be just straight across the board. If we have this kind of an issue that starts warranting, starting to consider changing our community plans, we need to look at straight across the board. What is so special about Jacoby Creek why we need to go through and start that planning process at this point? All we simply need to do is eliminate that one requirement of the 5-acre, put it back as standard straight across the county with all the other communities. Development consistent with standards, no waiver or anything else like that. So I presume that the standards that are applicable at this point are the same standards that are going to protect the community impacts and everything else. We've gone through, they've all been adopted. The 5-acre restriction was never evaluated, was never assessed. There is no evidence anywhere in terms of why 5-acre restriction minimum. It's just not there. When we did it, or when we considered the plan in 2020, and the city of Arcata, the Jacoby Creek came out and said, we're not going to provide services. That's when the plan should have been changed way back then. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to speak on this item? All right. And line up if there's more of you.
Good afternoon. I'm Kathleen Stanton, and I live in Bayside on Jacoby Creek Road, and I really don't support this proposed change before you. I think it's just too soon to make such a big change to the general plan, the Jacoby Creek Community Plan and zoning, in order to facilitate one applicant who basically wants to do a lot split but doesn't have enough land to do it. I think we should just continue to infill with existing parcels to allow our ADUs and the junior ADUs. Expending over $300,000 without enough public participation and time for discussion on such a big change to create 76 new parcels is just too great an expense. Thank you, in my opinion.
All right. Anyone else?
Good afternoon, Chair Wilson and Supervisors. Lisa Brown really summarized a lot very quickly, and so I'll just lend my voice to the points she made. I've emailed each of you this morning. Primarily for me, it's concern for Jacoby Creek and our ag lands. We know that it's the combined and cumulative effects of piecemeal that causes a lot of the problems for the county. It is such a big change that's being proposed to revamp our Jacoby Creek planning area plan, that it would take an awful lot of work and much more time. So I want to urge you to go with what your planning commission had approved. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else in the chambers that has to speak to this? Seeing none, I'm bringing it back to staff to if they have any responses to the comments that were made here today.
Yes, I will say that part of the struggle is to develop a rationale for why the 5 acres in particular would be removed, why potentially it would be reduced to less than 2.5 acres. I appreciated the last speaker's comment that, you know, the worst thing we can do is do things on a piecemeal basis. That's what we're trying not to do with this recommendation. We do recognize there's a lot here, but we tried to look at this holistically. And we actually started by just working with Department of Environmental Health to see if there were sufficient records that would give us a good understanding of what could be done or couldn't be done. And what we ended up finding is that, especially in talking to other people familiar with groundwater and geology, that this place is just highly variable. And so it puts us in an awkward place to come in and do things one at a time without really looking at things comprehensively.
Okay. Do we have comments from the board? Supervisor Arroyo?
Sure. I mean, I understand this is in part in response to a specific application, but you know, in our last discussion of it, we did direct staff to analyze in a limited way, without doing the deep dive, how many additional parcels could be created and what the housing potential was, because between 2017, when our general plan was, you know, completed, and now things, a lot of things have changed in almost a 10-year period around our housing requirements and expectations. So part of that was to understand the potential for housing creation. I agree that it is a unique area, and I can see why it was called out specifically, and it is understandable that the applicant would be frustrated by the unique limitations. So hearing all of the folks involved, you know, I do think that analyzing this makes some sense, but the cost is significant. So I'm really torn on this one. I don't know that I have a great answer right now. I look forward to hearing what my colleagues think, but I just wanted to add that around the analysis of housing potential, because we are under, you know, significant pressure to identify places where housing can be developed that is consistent with a lot of state requirements that are, you know, certainly important to us, and community requirements. So that was a big piece of what has changed.
All right. Supervisor Bushnell?
Thank you. I'm curious with, so the analysis that we would do around this area to identify whether, so it wouldn't be just the applicant's parcel, it would be this, it could change all of the requirements for that area, correct? If someone applied to do a split on their 5 acres, that, or if it was less than 5 acres.
Correct, yes.
So I'm curious with that analysis, the result of that could be that it is not sufficient for that area and that it's not doable?
It could be that there are areas, and we already believe that there are, that are not really capable of supporting more intense development. There probably are areas that are capable of it. There may be areas that are already developed at a pretty higher intensity than even the 2.5 average general plan density right now. But it would be looking at all those and trying to discern, can this be done without creating new impacts?
So we could do the analysis, and for instance then Mr. Henderson's piece could not be sufficient, but someone else's piece could be, so the end result would be that, and I am assuming it bases around groundwater and the need for public water there, that's not going to happen in the public, and the need for public sewer there, which is not going to happen, which we know that the city of Arcata is not interested. Is that correct?
I confirmed that in a conversation, yes.
Okay. And I know that an alternative could be mound systems, but they're limited in their structures as well, I'm assuming, and sightly kind of, they're weird mound things, but those would be considered in the analysis as well, whether that would work.
If they could work, that would be considered, yes.
Do we know if there are those systems in that area currently?
I believe there are, and I believe that Mario Carlson is here and can give you more detail on those.
Hi, Mario.
Hi. I'm happy to stand at the podium.
I really want to define my questions as whether if we're going to spend $300,000 to identify this area as suitable for housing, and the report's going to come back that it's not going to be suitable for housing, that is a lot of funding that we're out. And so around the groundwater and the septic issues and the groundwater issues, and I know you have history and data on that, so if that's what I'm looking for.
Thanks for the question, Mario Calson. I'm the Director of Environmental Health. Our staff worked with John and his team, the Planning Director, to evaluate and consider the inventory of our non-standards septic systems. So that not only includes mounds, which are systems that are above the ground, but also pressure distribution systems, and those go into the ground. Essentially, non-standards includes anything with a pump, and even standard systems, which are trenches in the ground that are gravity with linear feet over 500 feet. And so all those together, with that definition, we have around 72 of these systems in the Jacoby Creek Plan area. When we have developed sort of the minimum recommendation, a minimum size of 2 acres, in considering setbacks to property lines, setbacks to wells that would be required, footprints of primary units, secondary units, ADUs and JDUs, all those consume space, and there's a requirement to meet setbacks to property lines, and they all generate wastewater in which we would have to do a cumulative impact. And the cumulative impact of all that development has a potential to impact groundwater. So that's why we're recommending an advanced study as part of an appendix or something to reference in the CEQA document. Am I answering your question? I'm sorry.
Kind of. I wanted to know if there were mound systems currently out there, and whether you think that area, knowing what you've permitted in the past with septic systems and mound systems, whether you would think that area would be suitable for this kind of development, given that each, so I know one of the impacts is each 5-acre parcel currently can have a home ADU and a junior ADU. Is that correct? That's a question for John, and he
Yes,
says
that is correct.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes and no. And we're going to differ on that, and we've talked about this with council. And so existing parcels have already been created, and they're already created. And so they have to have the public health infrastructure to support additional development. And that's where the next round of review, the next level of review. So the cumulative impact study would help with the zoning amendments if that were the preference of the board, and subsequent development would still have to go through review individual site evaluation with DEH staff so that we can really assess individual properties. Because what you see, let me describe a couple more items, because the Jacoby Creek Area Plan encompasses diverse topography. You've got Golf Course Road kind of high up on the hill, has one sort of, and this is an overgeneralization, but one kind of ridge type topography, and then Jacoby Creek in the valley floor, a very different type of topography and very different issues. And even within those major generalizations, there's going to be other nuances for each site. What is the separation of groundwater? What is the slope? Where's the well? Where's the tributaries? Where are the wetlands?
So Mario, what I understand what you're saying, and what my question is that with each parcel, 5-acre parcel, it has the ability with approval, permitting, and those studies to have an ADU and a junior ADU, right? That's not just, that's through planning, then it comes to you. So then if you were to split so you have that added, things that could be added, and then John, if you were to split some of those parcels, so it could be increase a lot of housing out there.
It could essentially double what could currently be allowed.
Okay. Right. Okay. And so you still haven't answered my question with what you've permitted out there with, I know there are some regular septics, which would be in ground with leach systems, and then some mound systems. Have you seen failures? Have you seen, has anybody reported anything in their wells? That's what I'm looking for, is what currently with the homes that are out there on those 5 acres, Are there problems with the septic and groundwaters that you know of?
Yes, anytime the groundwater floods to the surface, that's considered a failure, right? We know that we're not meeting separation of groundwater if we're seeing surface groundwater coming out of the ground. And this year, around the new year, there was all those king tides. That condition is getting worse and worse in the valley floor. We didn't see anything visual up on the ridge, right? But that's all the Jacoby Creek area plan, and so at this level, the zoning conversation, I don't know that that's described at this level. But yes, we know in the valley floor that there's a problem there.
You've had reports of that, of
We
failures.
saw visually when there's a mound surrounded by water, and that's consequential for us and a public health issue.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Madrone.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I appreciate the presentation, and Mario, I'll probably have a few questions for you as well. So this area has a higher concentration of non-standard septic systems than just about anywhere in the county that I can think of. I mean, you talked about 72. That includes mounds, pressurized systems, extensive 500-foot long or more, leach fields, things like that. The only place I can think of that might have similar or will very soon have that same kind of concentration would be Fieldbrook Valley, which is really similar in a way. It's got the low valley with high water table. And while many of the homes that exist there now had septic systems installed in the past, they weren't mound systems until more recently with this realization that keeping that separation between sewage and groundwater is so critical to protecting salmon habitat and water quality. And in Fieldbrook Valley, Lindsay Creek dumps into the Mad River right above the intakes for 80,000 people's water, right? Things like that. So we already have that, a high concentration. I think it was 72 you stated of these non-standard systems. With just the existing parcels, I think, you know, they have a right to an ADU and a junior ADU, but as you stated, only if they can meet separation from groundwater with a new system or an expanded system that would handle all of those units. So just because they are existing parcels, they don't have an entitlement to your opinion, and I know we've had discussions of differences between existing parcels have these entitlements, they can build these things, and now they can do ADUs, et cetera. But your point of view has always been, yeah, but only if they can meet separation, you know, from groundwater.
Among other requirements, yes.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And so there's all these existing parcels that theoretically could add ADUs or junior ADUs if they can meet the various requirements of Department of Environmental Health. And then there's 78 other parcels that have the potential to be split, right? They may have one house on them now. Some are maybe undeveloped. But there's 78 of them that could be split, which was up to 200 or so more units, if I remember right, 238 or something like that, that also would need to make sure they had, I mean, in a way, they have that entitlement to split the lot and build more housing, which we need, but only if they can provide separation from groundwater and all those kinds of things. The soils are just so variable in places like this. My neighborhood, as you know, has a similar problem with this, where existing systems were put in and they're polluting other people's water sources, be that wells or springs. And we know this because of testing, taking samples to public health, things like that. So we actually have testing around all of that, where things were clean until a new system got put in and it wasn't non-standard, just basic, and all of a sudden there's fecal coliform in the water, which nobody wants, right? Even though you can treat it with UV and other things, it still doesn't let you sleep well when you're sitting there taking a glass of water and you're wondering, well, did the UV zap it properly? You know, whatever. So these are really huge issues, you know, in certain areas of the county, especially with variable soils like this Jacoby Creek area. So I will just say in general, I think that there was a tremendous amount of work that went into the community plan there, and everybody weighed into it. And we have what we have, and to be able to do anything different not only would cost us $300 grand to do that nobody's going to be paying, that's coming out of the county, but to what end? You know, when ultimately that, in a sense, allowing that to occur, increased development, would in a sense potentially take away existing entitlements from people that maybe didn't do the split or maybe didn't do an ADU or other things. And if they wait too long and other people do that and you get a higher concentration of systems in an area, that could absolutely impact existing entitlements in a sense, you know, by having a higher concentration of systems, whether they're non-standard or not. It still ultimately ends up into the ground and potentially into the groundwater. So, I mean, my general take at this is that it doesn't seem like a very good idea to change from what the community plan already said is the 5-acre minimum for this area. So that's my 2 cents.
Great, thank you. Supervisor Bone, do you have anything? No, okay. I just want to say a couple things before we get into our final deliberations here. One, I just want to thank both the planning and health department for the review of this. I want to reframe this. It's not, you guys aren't giving us a proposal to do anything in particular. I just want to put out there that this board requested an analysis and you guys have given us your analysis. So there's no, I just want to be really clear, there's just no proposal on the table. I don't want people to think that the planning department is, you know, pushing an agenda here for lot splits or anything like that. And the reason we asked for that analysis is because a proposed lot split that was non-conforming to our general plan came to us, and it is true that a lot has changed since 2017 in terms of the conversation around housing and housing stock and the impacts of that. And we do have, in essence, a housing crisis, and it's reflected in the cost of housing and all of those things. So I think it was a responsible thing for the board to do, to ask for this analysis, to see is there, you know, and we're always balancing, is the juice worth the squeeze in terms of where we are going to invest our dollars to do this kind of analysis. I mean, honestly, we could use housing trust fund monies to do this type of thing. I'm just saying, if we really thought this was going to give us a targeted kind of housing we're looking for in a way that would do that, all things being equal. I do want to emphasize that we did a general plan analysis, and I appreciate the comment from around where did the 5 acres come from versus 2.5 acres, and I'm not going back to that place. But what I do know is that since 2017, and without analysis, the state legislature did create an entitlement program, an entitlement around ADUs and JADUs, which in essence can double the environmental impact of each of those lots, and was done so without environmental review. And I hear what the health department is saying is that, well, you know, we really want to do that review on that. And I think maybe Supervisor Madrone was talking about a little bit was the SB 35 part of this, which I don't think applies to this place, which is the entitlements of lot splits. And those only, that entitlement through the state only occurs in places where you have the infrastructure to do so. So that's kind of off the, so what I'm getting at is that there's already been an expansion of potential impact without analysis from state law that's already occurred. And what I mean by that is there's been no aggregated, no region, no community analysis of what the impacts of just adding ADUs to everything could be. What staff is saying is that they'll do an individual impact to make sure it's not impacting a neighbor, or they're not being impacted by their wells and being impacted, just kind of neighbor on neighbor, but it's not really. So then that's where we're getting to now is like, okay, so if you were to try and get 57 more parcels, try to, through an analysis that would allow for a 2.5 acre, lot split, all you would get out of that is one piece of an environmental analysis, and maybe get all the way through to get to that, but it wouldn't include, it wouldn't include the work that everybody would have to do on individual parcels for the lot splits, it's just like, there's so much work. It's not like a subdivision. You're not gonna get actual parcels out of this. You're just gonna get the potential for us to go through this over and over again in these reviews. So then again, it goes back to, is juice worth the squeeze? And in my mind, I feel like that it's not, I don't think it's there yet, because I don't know how many new lots we would actually, is the balance between the impact of new housing versus the positive impact of new housing, which is more housing. We need more housing. There is a positive impact from new housing, which is more people have housing they can live in and have families in, and or do whatever they do. So, but in this case, I'm not quite convinced. Now, I did have a conversation with Supervisor Ford about, is there like a hybridized version of this? Could public health come back with, well, we think there's a threshold by which a certain number of new parcels in that area, and I'm not saying public health has said this, when we were just projecting on you guys, which would be if 5 new parcels came together, or 10 new property owners came together and wanted to do an analysis, an aggregated analysis, and then they could all pitch in and they could do that, and then just within those 10 parcels say, we would like the entitlement to split, and we're going to pay for that analysis as a group. I think it would be something worth considering. But that's what's not here today. What's here today is us with the consideration of moving forward with some analysis for these 57 parcels. I'm not there yet. I don't think and I'm also going to stand on the before this comes back to us again. I do want to say, we started this conversation because we were very unsure and skeptical of a change in policy for an individual parcel, which then could cascade to other parcels asking for that individual analysis, again, without the aggregation. We could do that, but the problem is then, there's potential litigation from neighbors. There's the precedent set, and so I would just be cautious of that, when if this potentially comes back to us again. So with that, I've said my piece. I think we shouldn't move forward with that. I don't know how we would frame the motion, and maybe I'll ask our attorney about that. And if there's anyone else, it looks like Supervisor Bushnell might have a closing thought. Thanks.
Thanks. So we brought this item back and did not deny the appeal. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so what happens if we choose not to move forward with an analysis, what happens with that appeal?
So I think the thing that we're going to do is talk to the applicant a little bit about options. One of those would be what Supervisor Wilson just mentioned. But if there is nothing else that is feasible or available to the applicant, we're probably going to bring this back with a recommendation for denial.
Okay. I really, I'm struggling because I don't, and this is no reflection on Mario, but I didn't really get my questions answered, which I really wanted to know about, because the analysis would work if the groundwater and the septics could sustain in that area. And there are areas that are, that do have smaller than 5 acre minimums that do sustain. And so I think it would be the testing that needs to be done there. That would be a key component of the analysis. Is that correct?
So part of the struggle here is that 5 acre minimum was applied to a pretty large area. And so where is it that you allow development within that area unless you start to try to put some parameters on that?
How big was that subdivision to begin with?
It was done 70s. I don't know what it was, a subdivision or just a bunch of parcel maps. It was done before the community plan was done, so all the parcels that exist out there were done before the community plan. I wasn't here, the applicant was. I can only speculate on what the decision-making may have been at the time.
I mean, so is it 1,000 acres that was divided into 5-acre minimums, and maybe it was considered a, you know, a beautiful area that was going to sustain higher quality houses or whatever? I'm just looking.
No, I think what happened was that the area became part of a community plan, and
Okay.
there were already lots of houses there.
Okay.
In fact, everything surrounding this area was already built out. And so I think part of the struggle is that, okay, if this area is going to build out at the density that it's at, we don't know enough about the groundwater and the geology to say it's appropriate. And so they may have chosen to put that 5-acre cap on there. I think from the applicant's perspective, and I want to be fair to this, his thought was that it was kind of a discouragement to allow development before it was annexed, either into a service district or into the city. But I mean, it may have been that those that were involved in developing the community plan kind of got to the same place we did. It's like, this is overwhelming to try to study, to understand. So where can you allow a higher density of development using septic, using water? Or should we just say, you know what, 5 acres is pretty safe, we're going to stay with that?
Well, I mean, in all fairness, in the 70s, the analysis that were done then and the considerations and the way they looked at things then compared to today are extremely at one end from the other. And
Agreed.
And California codes, building codes back then were different than they are now. And so I think, I mean, I don't know, you know, just throwing a penny out, I would say that it's what you said, oh, this 5 acres, that looks good, and that'll just keep the building down, or it'll make it a more desirable area to buy 5 acres and build one beautiful home on 5 acres. I don't know, but I think it's, you know, if there is area there to have housing and there's not really a good reason not to accept that, that's how it was done way back when, then I do think that it should be looked at. I just don't know who's going to pay for that, and then in the end results, because I don't seem to get the results or the answers that I need about the groundwater and septic issues. So that's where I'm discouraged, is like, ugh.
If I could say, we agree with you on that. I mean, the indications are that probably the applicant's parcel could support the development proposed. The struggle is that if we remove the 5-acre minimum, then what are we doing to the rest of the community? And that's the question that should be answered. Or if we start individually removing the 5-acre requirement, who are we not going to remove it for, and who else may get it removed?
So around that statement, if I could, so it is not as easy as, and this is where the analysis come in, say that if Mr. Henderson's property could support that it could be done. And this is where I know I've heard my board say we don't want to piecemeal things.
Right.
So, but it could be that he applies, his property is sufficient, and then if someone else wanted to do it in their property, the perks were done and all the things were done, and that was sufficient. So that is not something we could do?
That would require a general plan amendment to remove that requirement from his parcel. It would have to, and a community plan amendment to remove that provision from his parcel.
So it'd be piecemealing as well, like
Yep.
what we said earlier,
Yep.
according to the general plan. Thanks.
And I'm going to say one thing here, and then I'll move to the other commissioners, or excuse me, supervisors. Currently, the applicant, and again, we aren't I don't want to veer too much into the applicant here because it's not what's on the agenda. So keep an eye on this, council. I just want to say and everybody else in this zone has the ability to apply for an ADU, which is 1,200 square foot structure. So, which is, I want to frame, bigger than the house I raised 2 kids in. So it's like, it's not insignificant. Now, what we're talking about is a lot split. So from a housing perspective, there is the capacity within that community to build more housing just through the ADU law and analysis through our planning and building and through our environmental health. So I just want to say it's not that it's like zero in this moment. There is actually entitlement capacity for more structures to house people in this community that didn't exist at the time of the general plan. Just want to say, and without any environmental analysis, because also we would have to, if we were going to review this, we would have to analyze and not just an ADU, but also a JADU. So really there is an entitlement to at least seek permits for 2 more units on this property. So I just want to say it's not zero, and also the expansion of the existing structure to make it bigger. That also exists. So I just want to make sure we're not stopping anyone from doing those sorts of things. And so Supervisor Madrone, and then we'll take it back to Supervisor Bushnell.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, well, some of those new state laws do allow for the application for an ADU or a junior ADU, and without requiring any new CEQA documentation, if that's what you mean by environmental permitting. But as stated by our Director of Department of Environmental Health, it would still require proof that the site has the kinds of soils and distance separation from streams and wells and creeks and property lines that would allow for the installation of an appropriate sewage treatment system, whether that's non-standard or standard. And you may not call that environmental permitting, but it is truly looking at the environmental impact of adding a house and a new septic system and things like that. And I will say, in my experience, it is almost impossible to get separation on a 1-acre parcel between a septic system and a well or a spring or a creek. 2 acres is a little more doable if the soils are right. Like you said, Supervisor Bushnell, there are sites that absolutely can have these things if you've got the right kinds of soils that don't have high groundwater and have the right distance of separation from these resources and stuff. But also, just to correct, it's not 56, it's actually 78 parcels that could be split. And there are already an existing 100 and some, I didn't catch that number, but there's over 100 existing parcels. And many of those existing parcels do not have ADUs at this point. So like you said, Supervisor Wilson, there's that sort of entitlement, but only if they can meet the requirements of DEH on separation and treatment of sewage. So there's the existing ones, and there's 78 possibly new ones, and all of those theoretically could have up to 3 units if they got the right soils to be able to treat things and everything else. So it's a pretty large potential impact, and it wouldn't happen all at once, but there are some parcels that absolutely could probably add more units. Like you said, it's not a zero-sum game for housing. There are units that could absolutely probably add more without even splitting, just the ADU and junior ADU, if they got the right soils and the right separation.
Okay, Supervisor Bushnell, and then I'm going to look for a motion to
Well, and I just want to confirm with John, the motion would be just to receive and file, correct?
It'd be to receive and file, direct staff not to pursue any further analysis in Jacoby Creek.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that while you guys say that those housing can be added, which is true, I do think that Mr. Henderson is probably wanting to split his property to have some additional income, which I don't like to be the one to say no, that you don't have that right if that is what you need and there are those assets there. I don't think that what he wants is just to put an ADU on there, 1,200 square feet, and a junior ADU. I think that he wants to split that, build a home, be able to sell that for income to sustain his family, which if, you know, there isn't a good reason why those 5 acres are out there and was done in the 70s, except for to say, that's just what we're going to do. I hate to be the person to say that he can't do that and be able to, you know, have that for his retirement, or maybe he needs that income. So it's just not the issue only of housing, but it's that it's his land, and if it's appropriate for that, and there's really not a good reason not to do it, that's his right. And it bothers me to have to determine that.
And I'm just going to throw in there, it may not be for the income, it may not be anything else. It's just I know Larry's a little bit older than I am, and he might not just want to take care of 5 acres to the level that it needs to be taken care of, so it's not a fire danger or something else in that area. We don't know. I'm not going to anticipate that. We talk about the housing changing a lot since 2017, but yet we haven't done anything, I feel, to help move housing along. I've seen too many of these housing developments sit around for 20, 30 years, and it's just, we talk about it, and I'm going to tell you right now, those 4-story apartments with no parking that are going up all over Eureka to meet their requirements are going to be a lot like the one down by the co-op with all the cars parked around it with no parking. And I'm just afraid as hell for the people that live around there, but that's not going to be my issue.
Okay, with that, do we have a motion to, I'll just do it, to receive and file and not move forward with this, with more analysis? So that's the motion. Is there a second? And if
I'll second for discussion, yes.
Director Ford, my question is around, so then the appeal is going to come back to us, and at that time, is this the only way to do this, or at that time can the board discuss other options? And it would still be a general plan amendment, correct?
The ideal way to do it would be with the general plan amendment. The board has a lot of discretion to either follow staff's recommendation or not.
Okay.
Okay. We have a motion and a second, and I mean, if there is more discussion on this, we can have it. If not, if this motion fails, then there'll have to be another motion to do something else. So we have what's on front of us here, so if you want to look at the screen in front of you and press the button, and we'll move forward from there. Steve? Oh, yeah, you got it.
Motion carries 3-2.
Okay. Great. Moving forward from there, I think that's it for our in-house items. Do we go back to, hold on a second, let me look here. Yes, I think that is it. So we're going to go back into closed session now. We have one more item in closed session, and that's it. So nothing more to discuss there. Okay. Mr. Black, are you online and ready to fire off here? All right. Report out from closed session.
Thank you, Chair Wilson. There was no reportable action taken with regard to item G1.
Okay. Well, seeing no other items, we're closing this meeting, adjourning it. See you next week.